Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei and Rias died and become Overlord with Harem? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Triston Bacon for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. Issei lay dying in Rias's lap with 3 large holes in his body courtesy of the bite marks he got from Fenrir Rias, and the others were beyond shocked and devastated at what just happened, all the while Loki was in the background laughing to himself. It wasn't until Rias let out a fierce, deadly crimson aura which caught everyone's attention, even Loki's. Everyone can immediately tell that Rias was beyond pissed at watching Issei suffer from such a brutal and vicious attack by Fenrir Rias. Issei Rias. I'm so sorry. And with that, Issei died right then and there. Rias widened her eyes in shock. She couldn't believe what she just witnessed. The one man she loved above all else was dead in her arms. It was then that her crimson aura exploded. Rias, I will not let you die alone. Loki, you monster. How dare you? You think you can take what is rightfully mine? I don't give a damn about your Ragnarok, even if the world doesn't today, and even if every last drop of my blood is spilt. I swear I will take you down with me for taking away my ISSSSSSSSE. And with that, her destructive aura and power spread, consuming both Issei and Rias in her power of destruction. It was then that both of them awakened. The both of them were confused until they saw each other, and their eyes widened with tears coming out of their eyes. They immediately ran towards each other and adult one another in a loving embrace. Issei, Rias. Is that you? Rias, I see. My love, I'm here. And you're alive. It was then that the both of them shared a loving. It was then that the divine deity appeared in front of them. It appears that you two have awakened. Issei and Rias were beyond shocked at what they were seeing before them. Issei, who are you? My name is not important, however what I just saw was that the two of you are truly meant to be with one another, and that is why I am giving you both another chance at life. 1. Both Issei and Rias were shocked once again. Rias, you're giving us another chance to live. Yes. I am sending you both to a new world where the both of you can live your lives as you see fit, but I am not sending you to there alone. I know for a fact that Issei is familiar with what I am about to say. Are you aware of the games World of Warcraft and Yggdrasil? Issei immediately perked up, and hearing 2 of his favorite games that he played with his guild members before he entered high school. Issei, yes, I'm actually familiar with those games. I played the both of them before I entered high school and met Rias and the others. Rias was surprised that Issei used to be a gamer back then. Rias, Issei, I didn't know you used to play games back then. Issei, yeah, it was very good at those 2 games. In fact, I formed a guild in each, and in each of those guilds I was the leader, which consisted of 41 members each. What if I were to tell you both that I'm sending you to a world that is in the combination of the 2? Oh, and Issei, I'm giving you the powers and equipment that your character had, as well as all the servants that you created and your kingdom, and of course Rias here will be your queen. Issei and Rias blushed at the thought of them being truly together, but then realization dawned on Issei. As if what this divine deity was telling him was true, then he's going to look and sound like his character from World of Warcraft, plus him having the servants of both World of Warcraft Yggdrasil, even though who is no longer the Red Dragon Emperor. He and his lovely Rias would rule together as the king and queen of his empire that he created, and if what this deity was telling him was true, Rias would look like his NPC wife from World of Warcraft. Issei, if there is a chance that we can both live again, that I want to take it and spend the rest of my life with Rias, Issei said as he looked towards his lover and smiled with her doing the same as she started to shed small tears. Very well. I will now send you both to this world where I have transported Ice Crown Citadel and all of your followers there. I wish you both a happy life, and rule as you see fit. After all, you are now the Lich King. Issei and Rias opened their eyes and realized that they were on top of a spire, and that Issei was sitting on the frozen throne. They noticed their new appearance, Issei in the armor of the Lich King, and Rias looks the same except with pointed ears, and she's wearing a new outfit that consisted of red and golden armor. Issei then looked down and noticed several of his servants, several maids, and a butler. He also noticed the leader of the floor guardians, Albedo, kneeling in front of the 2. Issei and Rias looked at each other and noticed each wearing unique armor. It was then that Albedo looked up at both of them, and look of concern was on her face. Wondering if there was something wrong, she decided to speak up and ask, Albedo, my lord, my lady, is everything all right? Issei and Rias looked at Albedo, who was kneeling before them with the confused expression on her face, and wondering if everything was all right. Issei and Rias just looked at each other for a brief moment, then back towards Albedo. Albedo, your majesties? My lords, is everything all right? You seem troubled, your majesties. Issei and Rias noticed that she was genuinely worried. Issei decided to speak up and inform her on what to do next. Side note: Issei's voice is the same as the Lich King's, only when the helm of domination is upon his head. In this case it is. Issei turned towards his butler Seabass and gave out his commands. Issei, Seabass. Seabass immediately straightened up upon his master's command. Seabass, my lord. Issei. Seabass, step out of the great tomb and confirm the surroundings of Nazarick. Once that has done, check on the other floors and make sure our people are safe. Seabass immediately stood up and bowed to his master. Seabass, by your command, my lord, I will return. Seabass immediately made his way towards the teleportation circle that led to the frozen throne atop of Icecrown Citadel, and quickly teleported, making his way out of the fortress to confirm the surroundings that his master commanded him to do. Issei then turns towards Rias and nodded his head to her. Rias understood his commands. She then turned her attention towards the maids and issued up her orders. Rias, Pleiades, head towards the 9th floor. If anyone tries to trespass, deal with them. The maids all stood up and bowed towards their rulers, and the head maid spoke up for the rest of them. She had a little bit of armor covering her maid uniform and had black hair tied up in a bun. She also wore a headdress that was typical for maids to wear. Her name was Yuri Alpha. Yuri, as you wish, my lords, it will be done. She instructed the rest of the maids to follow her towards the 9th floor. Issei was now alone with Rias and Albedo atop of the frozen throne. It was at this point that Issei realized how big he and Rias were compared to the others. Issei sat on the frozen throne for a moment, adjusting to the situation that he and Rias found themselves in. Issei then remembered where he and Rias were at. This was Icecrown Citadel, the castle that lay at the very bottom of the great tomb of Nazarick, and he now realized the armor that he wore was the armor of his character, the Lich King. This place was Issei then remembered where he and Rias were at. This was Icecrown Citadel, the castle that lay at the very bottom of the great tomb of Nazarick, and he now realized the armor that he wore was the armor of his character, the Lich King. This place was one that he constructed with his guildmates when he played the MMORPG game Yggdrasil. This was before he met Rias and the others. He remembered he was the head of the guild in the game, and that he was the leader of the Scourge and several other races, which included blood elves, night elves, the undead, and several other races that he and his friends created in the game. He also remembers creating the backstory revolving his character. In this place he defeated the previous Lich King and saving the world. Unfortunately, there must always be a Lich King, so he took up the role and became the new Lich King in freeing all of those who were enslaved under the previous king. He also remembers writing in the story that they were so grateful that they immediately became loyal to him for freeing and saving their lives. He also remembers creating several NPCs that would serve as his queens. There was the Crimson Queen, which of course is Rias, and she's already wearing the armor that he custom designed for her. There was the Banshee Queen Sylvanas, Windrunner, the Blood Queen Lonathel, and the Warrior Queen Lady Lindren. Of course, these were all before he met Rias and the others. To him, this was his world, and he was now very familiar with his surroundings. If what he suspected was true, then he has the exact same powers as his character, and of course there's his legendary runeblade, Frostmourne. It was a legendary weapon that him and his guild created together, even spending real-world money just to put their time and effort into making the blade one that only he could wield. His friend thought it was only right for their guild leader to have the most powerful weapon imaginable. If he remembered correctly, the blade was still housed in the halls of reflection. After this was done, he would have to go and retrieve his sword. As Issei was thinking about this, he was actually also sharing the information with Rias telepathically so that she understood, and she was glad that Issei told her everything, even if she was a little bit jealous that she would have to share him with new girls. She was glad to know that she was the head of them, and she was honestly fine with that, and if they were going to make their way into this new world, then they were going to need all the power they needed. As the two were silently conversing with one another, Albedo then spoke up. Albedo, so, my lord. Issei, huh? Albedo, do you or Lady Rias have any orders for me to obey? Issei, even though he was sure he was aware of his surroundings, he decided to test his theory by telling the leader of the floor guardians to come to him for a second. Issei, I guess you can come here for a second. Albedo perked up at what her master asked her to do, and she was more than glad to come to his side for a brief moment. Albedo, sure, giggles. She immediately stood in front of the Lich King. Issei noticed that she smelled great. He didn't remember any smell functions in the game. He reached out with his hand and patted her head gently. Albedo blushed, and smiled at his kind gesture. She was so glad to have him ask her master. Other than the former Lich King, he used his powers to nearly destroy the entire world and slaughtered all those who resisted him. She was glad when Issei came to Ice Crown Citadel and dethroned Arthas, the previous Lich King. Unfortunately, she knew there must always be a Lich King when he decided to take up the mantle and rule over Icecrown. She and the others thought he would be just like their previous master. However, they were more than thankful to know that he was not like their previous master. He even offered them freedom, but each of the servants of Icecrown could sense the goodness in him. Even though the powers of the Lich King were used for evil, Issei proved that he could use the powers for his own purposes. All the races that were enslaved by Arthas were finally freed when they heard of Issei's great sacrifice to become the new Lich King, and when he freed their races they decided to pledge undying loyalty to him and the Scourge. Even if he would use the powers to conquer the world, he promised them personally that he would do no such harm to them or their people, and they will be beyond grateful for that. As Issei was petting her head, Rias's eye started to twitch, and Issei could tell she was jealous. He immediately retracted his hand and turned his attention towards his Crimson Queen. Even if his voice was altered by the helm of domination, she still loved him. His voice was altered only when he had the helm of domination upon his head. When he took it off, his voice was normal, but for now he had the voice of the Lich King. Issei, my queen, do not be jealous. You will have my personal attention always. Rias just smiled at his declaration, and Issei removed his hand from Albedo's head. Issei then turned his attention back towards the head of the floor guardians. Issei, Albedo, I have an order for you. Albedo, it will be my pleasure to serve you, my lord, my lady. Issei, except for the guardians on the 4th and 8th floors, I want everyone from Ice Crown Citadel and all the other floors to meet on the 6th floor fighting arena. Have them all gather there in 1 hour. Albedo bowed to both the Lich King and the Crimson Queen and immediately carried out his orders. Albedo, as you wish, my lord. After that she immediately stood up and walked her way down the frozen steps. She immediately got on the platform that led to the frozen throne and teleported away. Once she was gone, that left only Issei and Rias alone at the top of Ice Crown Citadel. Issei immediately sighed to himself. He still couldn't believe it was going on, and neither could Rias. Issei then took off the helm of domination, revealing his new face. If it was a mixture between his old one and his new one, only this time his eyes were a deep blue and the frozen aura could be seen behind those eyes. Issei sighs. Well, Rias, I guess somehow we'll just have to make our way into this new world, but as long as I have you by my side, I know that we can face anything together. Rias went in front of Issei and sat in his armored lap, wrapping her arms around his neck and leaning her head against his chest, and smiled. Rias, I feel the same, my Issei. I'll be honest with you, thanks for sharing the information with me through the telepathic link we share with each other, although I must admit I'm still confused how we ended up here, but it appears that we're royalty now, and I understand that you may have a few more queens with you now and in the future, but as long as I'm one of them, I'm fine with sharing you. Issei takes his armored hand and enveloped it in Rias's hand, and they both grasp each other's. The both of them looked at each other with a loving smile and gave each other a loving. After that was done, she got off from his lap and he got up from the frozen throne and proceeded to put the helm of domination back on his head. It was time for him to go collect his weapon, which was housed in the halls of reflection, his sword Frostmourne. The both of them descended from the frozen throne and got to the teleportation circle. Once they teleported down to the bottom of the spire, they proceeded to make their way through the frozen halls. The both of them continued walking for a while until they came to the chambers of the halls of reflection. The door automatically opened for its masters, and both of them proceeded to walk into the chamber, and there stood hovering in the middle of the room was the ruined blade itself. Issei then immediately stepped forward and reached out, and grasping his blade he could feel the power radiating from it. It was even more powerful than his old sword Ascalon. Even though on the backstory he knows this blade was used for evil, he intends to use it for his own purposes, and that is to strengthen Icecrown and protect the people he loves. After he retreated his sword, he immediately stepped down. Rias was impressed with the sword. Rias, so that's your new sword, I see. Issei, yes, this is Frostmourne. Rias, I can feel the power radiating from the blade. It's even more powerful than your old one. Rias said with the mix of awe in her words. Issei sheathed his sword and then offered out her hand to escort his beloved Crimson Queen. Issei, would you, fair maiden, honor the gentleman by gracing him to allow him to escort you? Rias just smiled and blushed and accepted the fair gesture from her beloved. Rias, why thank you, my Lich King. And with that the both of them proceeded to walk out of the halls of reflection and made their way to a teleportation gate. They immediately teleported to the 6th floor's fighting arena in the great tomb of Nazarick. Issei, well, we know that the teleportation works and it has no issues. Rias, agreed, the teleportation works similarly to the ones we used back home. Issei and Rias made their way inside of the arena and saw a vast open space in the middle. Issei then turned to Rias. Issei, it looks like Albedo and the others are still loyal. Just like they were programmed to be. But it makes me wonder, what about the other characters? Rias, don't worry, I'm sure they're still loyal. Issei, you're probably right. Anyway, the twin dark elves that one of my past guildmates Chagma created should be the guardians of this floor now. Where are they? Just as he said that, one of the dark elves jumped from atop of the stadium and did a mid-air front flip, smiling and landing in front of both Issei and Rias. She did a double peace sign and smiled. Erua crushed it. She immediately ran up to both Issei and Rias, the both of them smiling. What's the helm of domination preventing Erua from seeing his smile? But she could tell. Issei, Erua. Rias, Erua dear, how are you? Erua looks up at Rias and gives her the biggest smile, and she surprised Rias by giving her a hug, but nevertheless Rias just smiled back and hugged her. Erua, I'm doing great, your majesty, it's so wonderful to see you again. She immediately let go of Queen Rias and turned her attention towards the Lich King and bowed. Erua, we're honored to have you here, my lord. Welcome to the 6th floor of Fighting Arena. Issei, I promise we will only intrude for a little while. Erua, you must be joking, right? You are the great ruler of Ice Crown Citadel as well as the lord of the great tomb of Nazarick. Your power as the Lich King is absolute here. There isn't a guardian that would ever considered you or Queen Rias intruders, least of all my brother and myself. Issei, Speaking of Rias, Erua, where is your brother exactly? Issei and Rias looked around for a bit, and then Erua quickly turned around and shouted for her brother to get over here and not insult the Lich King and the Queen. Erua, Mare, you're being rude to His Majesty and the Queen. Stop cowering and get down here already. Erua shouted at the top of her lungs to one of the viewing areas in the arena that her brother was sitting in. He quickly popped up his head and responded in Toll. Mare, but sis, I'm scared, come on. Erua was not having it, and she quickly shouted for him to get down here already. Erua, Mare. Realizing that there was no convincing his sister, he decided to come down and greet the Lich King and his queen. Mare, okay, fine, I'm coming. Mare quickly jumped down from the viewing area. Once he got down on the ground, he quickly balanced himself, all the while Erua was just sighing to herself. Issei, due to having the helm of domination on his head, nobody could really tell his facial expression was except through the glowing blue eyes of the helmet, but underneath the helmet he was smiling and chuckling to himself, all the while Rias, on the other hand, was just smiling and giggling to herself. Erua sighs, good grief. Once Mare dusted the dirt off of his uniform, he quickly ran over to join his sister, and meeting with the Lich King and the Queen. Erua, we're getting old here. Mare, I'm hurrying. Once Mare was in front of both village King and the Queen, he quickly bowed his head and addressed his rulers. Mare, I apologize for making you wait, your majesties. Rias smiled and got down on her knees and gave him a hug. He was also surprised, but he quickly returned the hug and smiled. Rias, you have nothing to apologize for, Mare, your timing is perfect. She quickly let go of him, stood back up right beside her. King Issei quickly spoke and addressed everybody. Issei, she is quite right, you have nothing to apologize for. Now I like for the two of you to help me with something. Issei removed the side of his cape and put his hand on the hilt of the rune blade Frostmourne, and quickly unshipped his mighty sword, and lifted it in the air so that all could see. Both Erua and Mare were both in awe at the sight of the legendary sword itself. They couldn't believe that they were actually in the presence of the blade. They could feel its power, all the souls that were trapped in the blade. However, these souls weren't those of innocence, they were those of the damned evil souls that tried to take over the world. Thanks to Issei freeing the souls of the innocent that were trapped within the blade, he quickly took it upon himself to carry the weight of such a burden, and strike down the evil that would dare bring harm to Ice Crown and to the people that have pledged their loyalty to him. Mare, amazing is that the legendary rune bladed itself that will only bend to your will. Frostmourne. Issei held up the blade for them to see in all of its glory. Issei, indeed it is a testament of our dedication, and the blade itself only bends to the power of the Lich King itself. Before I became the Lich King, as you well know, myself and the past members of the Guild of Einzelgaun dedicated our lives to overthrowing the previous Lich King and freeing all from his tyranny. We succeeded in the end, and I ultimately took up the helm of domination as well as the armor, and became the new Lich King. But unlike the previous one, I would use this power to protect the ones that I considered my loved ones and friends and comrades. I would not be like the previous Lich King. I will be something new entirely, and I would use this blade to create that future. As he was saying all of this, both Erua and Mare couldn't help but look at their master in amazement with huge smiles on their faces. Rias couldn't help but smile with the fact that Issei was good at telling stories to young children such as them. Even though they are older than them, they are still kids in elf years. She couldn't help but smile at her lover, thinking that one day he could tell stories like this to their children. Blushed at the thought. Issei, well, anyway, that's how it is. Mare, incredible. Erua, awesome. It's so cool. Issei, I would like for the two of you to help me run some tests with it. Erua and Mare were more than glad to help out their master with his weapon in any tests that were deemed necessary. Erua, right, we won't let you down, my lord. Issei, also Erua, I called for all the other guardians to meet here, as well as the guardians that guard Ice Crown itself. They will be joining here as well. They should arrive within the hour. Erua put on a bit of a somewhat of an annoyed face. Erua, huh? Does that mean Shelter's coming? Issei just nodded his head. Issei, yes. Rias quickly stepped in and reminded Erua to mind her manners. Rias, now Erua, I know that you and her get into arguments from time to time, but you must remember who you are on the presence of, so try not to argue too much, alright? Erua quickly bowed her head to the queen. Erua, your majesty, I understand. She rose her head again and faced the Lich King along with her brother Issei, then walked to the other side of the arena. He looked down at his blade. He could feel the power radiating from it. It was time for him to test it out and see what it could really do. Issei mind. Issei, alright, time to find out what this thing can really do. Here goes nothing. Issei held out his sword in front of him. Then from the air little shards of ice started to attach to the blade, and it started to glow blue. Then he quickly impelled it within the ground, sending ripples throughout the entire ground of the arena. Skip to 1:43 minutes into the video. After he impelled the ground, a large gust of wind spread throughout the area and large cracks appeared into the ground, revealing that underneath it was large, started to break through the ice and revealed itself to be a massive undead bone wraith. The bone wraith wielded a giant axe made of bones of fallen warriors that have dared to tread upon the grounds of Ice Crown Citadel. The wraith started to glow blue, infused with the magic of the Lich King to power it. Mare, oh wow. Erua, awesome. Issei, a bone wraith. This one's level is in the upper 80s. Both Erua and Mare gasped in excitement and amazement. Even though this was just an ordinary bone wraith, it was still very powerful. Issei smiled a little bit underneath the helm of domination, proud of this work. Rias was also quite impressed with her lover's new powers. It looks as though as he can command the undead, and from what she remembers of him telling him about what his character can do, these were the powers of the Lich King, and honestly she was very impressed. Even though he may no longer have Drake with him, he has gained new powers, probably even more powerful than the Red Dragon Emperor. She also remembers that in this game, or new world she should say, that she is the head queen and that he is several and probably will end up getting more in the future. She doesn't mind sharing as long as she has her share of attention, but right now she focused her back on the fight. Issei meanwhile was thinking to himself and about his new powers. If this was truly his character from Yggdrasil, then he must also be careful with his new powers, because right now he knows that he has the power to conquer the entire world if he wanted to, and he knows that Rias will support him and whatever action he decides to take in. But that was an idea for the future. Right now he put his focus right back on Erua and Mare. Issei, so would you two like to fight it? Mare became a little bit nervous, however Erua was excited. Erua, yeah, I'd love to, she said with a huge smile on her face. Rias just giggled to herself. Mare tried to quickly come up with an excuse to leave. Mare, I just remembered I still need to tend to Bai. But before he could finish, his sister got a hold of his arm and dragged him to the center of the arena to fight the undead. Erua, come on. Mare, aha. Issei and Rias then moved to the end of the fighting arena and allowed Erua and Mare to have their space further duel with the massive bone wraith. Erua readied her whip and Mare, it seemed a little scared, but he was ready nonetheless. The bone wraith ready its massive axe. Issei called out from the side for the duel to commence. Issei, Bone Wraith attacked the Dark Elf twins. The Bone Wraith launched itself at Erua and Mare, swinging its massive axe. Erua ran forward and jumped out of the way of with the axe slamming onto the ground, creating a mass of creator. Erua let out a vicious war cry and attacked the Wraith with her whip, managing to land a decisive hit on the undead. However, it proved to be far stronger than it looked, with the whip only grazing it. The Wraith tried to reach out and grab her, however Mare was quick to cast a magical shield protecting his sister. Mare, magic shield. Mare used his staff, casting a barrier to protect Erua from the incoming attack. The Bone Wraith was not able to penetrate the barrier. Erua saw this as her chance, and let out another deadly attack of her own. As the battle continued, both Issei and Rias were watching from the sidelines, and they were quite impressed. Issei, you know, with the way Erua attacking, she reminds me of Kaneko. After he said that, he immediately regretted it, and started to feel sad, and so did Rias, realizing that they'll never see the others again. They were beyond devastated. Rias went over to Issei and enveloped his hand with her own. Issei looked straight into her eyes as she began to speak. Rias, it's hard to believe that we'll never see the others again. But we just have to make our way into this new world. I know that deep down in my heart they'll want us to keep moving forward no matter what, and to keep striving to new goals and achievements. I know for a fact that is what they would want us to do. Issei nodded his head. She was right. Even though the others are no longer with them, that doesn't mean that they will never forget them. Right now he's just glad to have his crimson-haired ruined princess by his side. Issei, you're right, Rias, they would want us to move on. As hard and difficult as it would be, it probably is for the best. Rias gave him a reassuring smile and nodded her head. The both of them then turned their attention back towards the fight as it was still going on. Issei then spoke up. Issei, I had a feeling this would be easy for them. Now I know my other skills work as well, but Rias, try the message system, see if it's working. Issei nodded his head and began to activate the message system. Try and contact anybody. Issei message. Issei heard a beeping noise in his ear, and you couldn't hear anything, not even from his old guild members or anyone else, so he decided to try and contact any one of his servants, and see if it would work. He tried again, and this time he heard his personal butler Seabass. Seabass, I am here. Is there something you need, my lord? Issei was surprised that his magic spell connected, so he continued and spoke. Issei, Seabass, how are things with our citizens, and how does it look on the outside? Seabass, well, my lord, I have some good news and bad news. The good news is that our citizens, the High Elves, the Blood Elves, the Night Elves, the Dwarfs, the Naga, the Orcs, and the Nerubians are well and fine. However, the bad news is... Well, my lord, there is a slight problem. Issei, I have called all the guardians that guard the Great Tomb and Ice-Crowned Citadel to gather. Come to the amphitheater on the 6th floor immediately. You can report what you saw once you're here. Seabass, understood, your majesty. After the conversation was done, the spell disconnected, and Rias looked towards her beloved, asking what was going on. Rias, what's going on? Issei, well, the good news is that all of our citizens are fine. However, there may be a slight problem outside the Great Tomb. I told Seabass to report what he saw once everyone arrives. Rias nodded her head in understanding. Then they quickly turned their attention back towards the fight that was going on, only to see that the Wraith had been defeated. Erua and Mare were impressed with their work, and quickly ran over to the Lich King and Queen. Rias. Issei nodded his head in approval, with Rias doing the same. Issei, well done, that was quite impressive. Rias, indeed, I'm so proud of you too. Erua, thank you, your majesties, I haven't exercised that much in a while. Rias just giggled to herself while Issei opened up a small portal and got out some water for the two of them. Issei, you two must be thirsty. He gave them both glasses and poured some water for the both of them. They were a little surprised at first, and looked towards each other before gulping down the water. Erua spoke up next. Erua, I have to admit, my lord, I thought you'd be scarier. Like the previous Lich King. Issei, I am nothing like him. And unlike him, who is hanging from the top of the frozen throat. I won't treat you as he did. You all are precious to me. Even though I am the Lich King, I treat all my servants with a respect and kindness. Both Aura and Mare were very surprised at what their master just said. They were beyond glad to know that their new king would not be like the previous one. True, their new master would rule like the previous one, but he would rule differently, and they were glad to know that he treated them with kindness. Rias was very glad to know that Issei still cared for everyone, even if they were in a different world. Erua, thank you, your majesty, I like you this way, it's the best. Mare, I agree, my lord. Issei then walked back over and stood right beside his Crimson Queen. It was then that the portal opened up, revealing two individuals. One of them was a vampire, and the other one was one of his queens. This was Blood Queen Lonathel. The second woman that was right beside her was another one of his servants. This was Shaltir Bloodfallen. Shaltir, my, it appears we are the first to arrive. As the both of them arrived, so did the others from Ice Crown and the other floors. Issei began to talk with Rias through their telepathic link. Issei, well, even if we don't know what's fully going on, but it seems that all of the NPCs are loyal to us. Rias, indeed my love, we should probably keep playing our roles and act like the proper superiors, especially you, since technically you are my king now, my love. Issei, W. Well, of course, and while we're at it we need to learn everything we can about this world. I was max level in Yggdrasil, so I wonder how strong I'll be here, and I'm wondering how strong you will be here as well. Even though our friends and family are no longer with us in this world, I suggest we do everything we can to adapt to our surroundings. Rias, I agree my love. Once they were done with their conversation and everyone was gathered, they immediately got on the knees and bowed before their king. Albedo was the first to speak. Albedo, my lord, we the guardians of both Ice Crown and the Great Tomb pledge our fidelity Analgians to you. It was then that each of the guardians stepped up and introduced themselves to their one true lord and master. Shaltir, I am the guardian of the first, second, and third floors. Shaltir Bloodfallen, I serve and obey. The next one to speak was a massive blue warrior. This was Cocytus. Cocytus, the guardian of the fifth floor. Cocytus, I serve and obey. The next two speak up were Erua and Mare. Erua, I am the guardian of sixth floor. Erua Bella Fiora. Mare, I am her brother and also the guardian sixth floor. Mare Bello Fiora. Both, we serve and obey. The next to speak up was a man with pointed ears and dressed in a business suit, and had a tail. This was the demon Demiurge. Demiurge, the guardian of the seventh floor. Demiurge, I serve and obey. The next to speak up instead forward was a massive insect-like monster. This was Anubarak. Anubarak, I am the guardian of Azul Nerub. Anubarak, I serve and obey. The next to speak up was the woman that came with Shaltir. She was the guardian of the Crimson Halls of Ice Crown Citadel, and she was also one of Issei's queens. This was Blood Queen Lonathel. Blood Queen Lonathel, I am the guardian of the Crimson Halls as well as one of your lovely queens. Blood Queen Lonathel, I serve and obey, as well as I give my eternal love to you. The next to speak up was a massive monster made entirely of bones and had several skull heads and massive bone-like wings wielding a massive bone axe. This was the Lord Merogar, guardian of the Frozen Throne. He was also a bone wraith, but far bigger than the one Issei summoned. Lord Merogar, I am the guardian of the Frozen Throne. Lord Merogar, I serve and obey. The next to speak up was an undead female lich. This was Lady Death Whisper, the guardian of the Cult of the Damned. Lady Death Whisper, I am Lady Death Whisper, guardian of the Cult of the Damned. I serve and obey. The next step up and speak was a dwarf dressed in armor. This was Muradin Bronzebeard. He was the guardian of the airship fleet. Muradin Bronzebeard, my name is Muradin Bronzebeard, guardian of the airship fleet. I serve and obey. The next to speak up was an orc. This was High Overlord Sorfang. He was the guardian of the Forge of Souls. High Overlord Sorfang, I am High Overlord Sorfang, guardian of the Forge of Souls. I serve and obey. The next to speak up was his son Deathbringer Sorfang. He died during the battle with the previous Lich King, however thanks to Issei he resurrected him, and because of that he pledged his loyalty to the Lich King in the Frozen Throne. He was also the guardian and the Lord Protector of the Citadel. Deathbringer Sorfang, I am Deathbringer Sorfang, guardian and Lord Protector of the Citadel. I serve and obey. The next one to step forward appeared to be an undead scientist with his lower jaw missing and his tongue hanging out. This was Professor Putricide, guardian of the Plague Works. Professor Putricide, I am the guardian of the Plague Works. Professor Putricide, I serve and obey. Two individuals came forth and spoke up. Next one was an undead lich, and the other was a green dragon. A green light shined from the dragon, and once it faded away it revealed her true form. These were Kel'Thuzad and Valithria Dreamwalker. Kel'Thuzad, I am the guardian of the Frostwing Halls. Kel'Thuzad, I serve and obey. Valithria Dreamwalker, I am also the guardian of the Frostwing Halls. Valithria Dreamwalker, I serve and obey. The next to set forward was a massive undead dragon. A bright blue light shined from the dragon, and once it faded away it revealed her true form. This was Cindergosa. She was the guardian of the Frost WYRMs. Cindergosa, I am the guardian of the Frost WYRMs. Cindergosa, I serve and obey. Two more undead dragons came up right beside her, and bowed their heads. These were Rhymefang and Spinestalker. Rhymefang, I am a servant to Sindragosa and also a guardian of the Frost Wyrms I serve and obey. Spinestalker. I am also a servant to Sindragosa and the last guardian of the Frost Wyrms I serve and obey. The next to step up, or should I say slither up, was a snake woman. This was Queen Azhara, guardian of the Naga. Queen Azhara. I am Queen Azhara, ruler and guardian of the Naga I serve and obey. The next to step forward was a woman with massive wings. She almost looked like a Valkyrie. This was Sister Svalin. She was the guardian of the Frost Vrykle. Sister Svalin. I am Sister Svalin, guardian of the Frost Vrykle I serve and obey. The next one speak up was also another dragon, but he was massive. This was Deathwing the Destroyer. He was the guardian to the entrance of the great tomb of Nazarick. Deathwing. I am Deathwing the Destroyer. I am the guardian to the great tomb of Nazarick I serve and obey. It was then that another portal opened up and two more women appeared out. These were both elves. One of them was dressed in armor and had a bow on her back with her hood up. This was Sylvanas Windrunner. She was one of the queens of the Lich King, of course, that being Issei. The second elf came through next. She was wearing crimson armor and had a little bit of reddish-orange hair. This was Lady Liadrin. She was also one of the queens of Issei. Once the both of them stepped out of the portal, they saw everyone was gathered. They immediately turned their attention towards Issei, and the both of them smiled and quickly went over to him. Issei smiled underneath his helmet, or should I say his crown. They were beyond overjoyed to see their beloved Sylvanas. My love, my apologies for being late. We were held up for a moment. Liadrin, indeed you have our deepest apologies. The both of them immediately got on their knees and bowed before their king, and their husband Sylvanas spoke up first. Sylvanas. I am Sylvanas Windrunner, one of your faithful queens of Ice Crown. I serve and obey my one true love, Liadrin. And I am Lady Liadrin, also one of your faithful queens. I serve and obey my one true love. The next to speak up was Albedo. Albedo, the leader of the Floor Guardians as well as the Guardians of Ice Crown Citadel. I am Albedo. I serve and obey. Rias decided to join them all and quickly got in front of Issei. He was confused at first until he noticed that she got on her knees and bowed before her king and love. Rias. And I and Rias Gremry, the head queen and the crimson queen of all of Ice Crown and Nazarick, I serve and obey my one true love. We await your orders, my lord. Issei impaled Frostmourne in the ground and put both of his hands on the end of the handle, and his eyes glowed a brighter blue than they already were. It is time this world would know the wrath of the Lich King. A portal opened up behind the group and Shaltir and Blood Queen Lonathal came through. Shaltir. My mind, it appears we are the first to arrive. Blood Queen Lonathal. Indeed, Shaltir. As Issei and Rias looked over towards the new arrivals, Issei was thinking to himself. Issei's mind. Issei. Shaltir, Blood Fallen, a true vampire, and Blood Queen Lonathal, a dark fallen end guardian of the Crimson Halls and Ice Crown Citadel, as well as one of my lovely queens. I remembered during the event that I actually had to fight against her with my guild, as she was one of the bosses in Ice Crown. She was quite tough, but we eventually defeated her and set her free from the previous Lich King's influence. Now she is one of my companions as well as one of my wives. Issei connected telepathically with Rias and relayed the information towards her. Rias. She's quite the striking figure, but if you like her, then who am I to stop you? After all, you saved me and the others more times than I can count. My only reason for living now is to make you happy. Even though the others are no longer with us, perhaps they can try to fill in the void of our lost loved ones. Issei. I appreciate it, Rias. Thank you. And I love you so much. Rias mentally smiles and blushes to herself. Rias. I love you too with all my heart, my icy, real world. Shaltir and Lonathal noticed both Issei and Rias. Lonathal quickly went over to hug her beloved. Blood Queen Lonathal, my love. The one man I can never rule above, who set me free from Arthas's control, and the one man whom I cherish above all else, my true Lich King. Issei was surprised when she hugged him, but he returned the hug all the same. Shaltir came over and expressed her gratitude towards her master. Shaltir, oh wow, my Lich King. The one man I can never rule above, my eternal beloved. She rushed over and gave her master a hug as well. Issei, Rias, and Lonathal were all caught off guard by this. Issei's mind. Issei, what the hey? Real world. Erwa. Stop it, Shaltir, you're starting to slobber on our master, and on top of all that, two of our queens are in the middle of having a moment with him. Don't disrespect them by coming in between them. Shaltir just turned her head towards both Erwa and Mare. Shaltir just gave a bit of a smirk towards Erwa. Shaltir. Hello, Half Pint, I didn't realize you were here. Lonathal. Well, in case you have a remembered I am, and I'd appreciate it if you let go of my husband. Remember your place, Shalter. Shalter could feel her arrow rising. She quickly let go of her master, and bowed with the greatest of apologies. Shalter, apologies, my lords, I will remember that from now on. Shalter turned her attention back towards the dark elf twins. Arrow was giving her a bit of an annoyed look, while Shalter just smirked. Shalter, it must be difficult, mare, having such a foolish older sister. However do you manage it? Arwa just glared at her, then she came up with a comeback and said it right to her face. Arwa, Miss Big Tits. Shalter was caught off guard by this, and she blushed and immediately covered her chest. Shalter, what? Arwa just smirked at her. Arwa, just as I thought, that's why it went through the trouble of using a gate. You were in such a hurry, but since you overstuffed your tops so much you were worried that they would shift if you ran here. Shalter really got mad that statement and lashed out. Shalter, ah, watch it, elf, you've got nothing but a boy chest. Arwa just smirked at her. Arwa, it's true, but I'm only 76 years old. I can still develop, whereas you are stuck in an undead body. Maybe you should learn to accept those bug bites. Maybe the Nerubians can help you out with that, she said while smiling at her statement. All the while Shalter got even more upset, and went over in front of her, and challenged her directly. Shalter, how dare you? As the two of them were bickering back and forth, Rias just sighs to herself and smiles. The same could be said for Issei. He continued to talk to Rias through their mental link, explaining his more about the floor guardians and who they are. Issei's and Rias's minds. Issei, talk about nostalgic. Shelters took after one of my former guildmates, Perurancino, him, and his older sister Bukabuka Chagama, who Arua and Mare took after. You used to have fights like this all the time. Rias, is that right, my love? I can tell things are going to be quite lively around here. Issei, yup, especially with these two. Real world. As Shalter and Arua continued to argue back and forth while Mare just stood there lost and confused what to do, several new voices were heard and one of them spoke up. Cositus, what a ruckus, stop acting like children in front of the Supreme Lord and Master. Anubarak, agreed, you two need to stop falling around and act ages, especially in front of the Lich King. Queen Ezhara, my goodness, are those two acting at it again, I swear. Lord Merogar, those two need to learn how to act with respect around the Master. Issei, Rias, Lonathal, and the others looked toward the new voices were heard, and sure enough several individuals came walking over these works, several of the guardians of both the Great Tomb of Nazarick and Iceground Citadel itself. Issei continued to speak to Rias through their mental link, and explain who exactly these people were. Issei and Rias's minds. Issei, Cositus, he's the guardian of the 5th floor and a virtual personification of the word warrior. Rias, I see, he almost looks like a samurai. Issei, indeed, the next one, that one that looks like a cross between a spider and a beetle. His name is Anubarak. He is the guardian of the Wrath Gate, and the leader of the Nerubians, an insectoid race, the spider and beetle-like people. I remember that some of them willingly converted themselves and undead to serve in the Scourge armies that are under my command. Rias, normally I hate bugs, but in this case it's an exception. He looks very powerful. I can tell he'll be a great ally in the coming days. Issei, indeed. The next one, representative, the snake woman. Her name is Queen Ezhara. She is the leader of the race of snake people known as the Naga. She is the ruler and the guardian of her race. Rias, I see. Issei. And the next one is a massive bone wraith, you know, like the one I summoned earlier to fight Arua and Mare. That one was less powerful, but this guy, he was created from the bones of 1,000 adventurers that were killed in battle. Unlike the regular bone wraiths, this one is far more powerful. In fact, he is the guardian to the spire that leads to the frozen throne, and he wields the power of the very throne itself. His name is Lord Merogar. Rias, quite impressive. I can feel his icy Arua from here, and I can tell that your words are true. He does wield the power of the frozen throne itself. Real world. As Issei got done explaining this group to Rias, Shalter and Arua continued to bigger back and forth. Lonathal was starting to get irritated that they were behaving this way in front of the Lord and Master of Ice. Crown Shalter started to ignite 2 balls of flame in each of her hands and was preparing to get physical with Arua. She also readied her whip just in case. Shalter, I'll stop once this elf bitch pays for her lies. Arua, try it, vamp. Just as the two of them were about to fight, Cositus slammed his weapon into the ground, and the ground started to turn into ice. However, just before things could get too out of control, Issei shouted with this loud and mighty voice for them to cease this racket. Issei, enough. Shalter, Arua, we don't have time to be playing around. The both of them immediately stopped what they're doing, realizing the seriousness in their master's voice. They quickly bowed before their king in apologies for their insolence. Both, forgive us, my lord. Issei Rias and Lanathel looked over towards where Cocytus, Lord Merogar, Queen Azhara, and Anubarak were standing and thanked them for coming. Rias, good you're here. Issei, indeed I am glad you all have arrived. Cocytus, Anubarak, Queen Azhara, and Lord Merogar, I am pleased you have come. Cocytus, we will always come when you call, my lord. Anubarak, indeed whatever the command, whatever the deed, I will always answer, my master. Queen Azhara, just say the word and I will come and obey your commands, my lord. Lord Merogar, no matter the order, no matter the task, I will always obey your will, my lord. Issei, very good. It was then the new voice was heard and several new people could be seen. Demiurge, sorry everyone for the delay. Issei and the others turned towards the new coming group that arrived in the fighting arena. There was the leader of the floor guardians Albedo, as well as the extremely powerful demon Demiurge, as well as several others, those being 2 undead liches, a massive green dragon as well as another dragon. There had parts of metal molded onto his body, what appeared to be an undead scientist. Besides Demiurge and Albedo, the new faces were to start off. First there was Kel'Thuzad, an extremely powerful lich. He is one of the guardians of Ice Crown Citadel. He is responsible for guarding the Frostwing halls of Ice Crown Citadel. There was also another lich right beside him, but she was a female, and her name was Lady Death Whisper. She is the guardian of the cult of the Damned in Icecrown. The next up were the 2 dragons, and once they touched down, a massive light enveloped both of them, and they both turned into their human forms. The first one, being the green dragon, was a woman. Her name was Valithria Dreamwalker. Just like her comrade Kel'Thuzad, she also guarded the Frostwing halls of Ice Crown Citadel. Her fellow dragon repressed her that now transform into his human form. This was Deathwing the Destroyer. He was the guardian in charge of guarding the entrance to the great tomb of Nazarick. Kel'Thuzad, apologies for our tardiness, my lord. Lady Deathwhisper, apologies for the wait, everyone. Deathwing, we're Shaltir and Arrow at it again. I swear. Valithria, oh dear, you two need to learn how to get along with each other, especially in front of the master. Professor Putra sighed, my. That is not proper behavior to be acting especially in front of His Majesty. Aura, yes, sorry about that, everybody. Shaltir, I'll at least try to get along with her as long as she stops with her insults like that. It was then the sound of flapping wings could be heard. Everybody looked up only to see several undead dragons appear in the sky. They started to descend the arena. Once they touched down, several individuals could be seen getting off the backs of the undead dragons. There was a dwarf and an orc in matching sets of armor, but with different colors, blue for the dwarf and red for the orc. There was also another orc, but he was wearing a set of Death Knight armor that was more black. Another set of wings could be heard in the sky. A woman wearing a set of armor with massive wings on her back could be seen descending into the Colosseum. She looked like a Valkyrie, like the ones that guard Odin in Norse mythology. She reminded Issei of Roswis. He truly missed her as well as the other girls. Rias could sense her lover's sadness. She enveloped his hand with her own and offered a assuring smile. He gave her a nod of approval. The group then made their way over where everybody else was. It was then that the bigger of the 3 skeletal dragons had a massive light surrounding it. Once the light faded, it revealed the skeletal dragon, and her true form. It was her human form, and she was quite beautiful. She had dark skin and silver-like hair. Issei, remember these people in this new group were the first one was the dwarf. His name was Muradin Bronzebeard. He was an incredibly powerful warrior, and the leader of the dwarves that had pledged their loyalty to the Lich King. He was also the guardian of the airship fleet of Ice Crown Citadel. However, unlike the rest of the Scourge army, the dwarfs, orcs, and elves, at least the ones that are dark fallen, have willingly pledged themselves to Issei's rule. He remembers back in Yggdrasil during the event where he and his party members took down the Lich King, they had to help out several races such as humans, dwarfs, elves, and orcs band together to defeat the might of the Scourge, and once they defeated the Lich King, a new one had to take his place. He remembers the event allowing you or one of your guild mates take up the mantle of the Lich King and use Ice Crown Citadel as a base of operations. His guild voted that he should take up the mantle since he was the best player among them, and so he did, and he became the new Lich King. He remembers the event also allowing several races to willingly pledge themselves to his rule, and that's how the dwarves, elves, and orcs came to be under his command. Anyway, back to remembering everybody else. The next one was the orc leader, High Overlord Sorfang. When he pledged himself to him, he became the guardian of the Forge of Souls. The next orc that was beside him was actually his son Dranish Sorfang. Unfortunately, he died in the battle against The previous Lich King, however, he was resurrected to become a elite Death Knight, and was renamed Deathbringer Sorfang. He became the guardian and lord protector of the citadel. The three dragons, the first two undead dragons, were Spinestalker and Rimfang. These two undead dragons were attended to Cindergosa. She was the Frost Queen and leader of the Frostbrood, a group of undead dragons that are part of the Scourge army. And finally, the Valkyrie-like woman, her name was Sister Sylvanas. She was actually a Valkyrie. They are somewhat similar to the Valkyrie back home, but these ones were made by the Lich King himself. The Valkyrie are a race of female Vrykul, a race that has of massive barbarian people of both male and female, almost Viking-like warriors. They willingly submitted themselves to serve the Lich King, and proclaimed him as their death god, in which case is Issei. Luckily, Issei explained all this information to Rias thanks to their mental link. Once everybody was now gathered, Demiurge spoke. Demiurge, good, it appears everybody has arrived. I hope you weren't waiting too long, my lord. Issei, no, you all arrived just on time. Muradin, High Overlord Sorfang, Deathbringer Sorfang, Cindergosa, Spinestalker Rimfang, and Sister Svalna. Demiurge and Albedo, thank you for coming. Muradin, of course, my lord, just say the word and I'll come running by your side. High Overlord Sorfang, I second that notion full-heartedly, my lord. Deathbringer Sorfang, I am yours to command, my lord. Sister Svalna, I will always come when you command it, my lord. Cindergosa, we are at your disposal, my lord. Spinestalker, I serve and obey in, my lord. Rimfang, my lord, I await your orders. Demiurge, of course, my lord, it is the duty of every guardian to come before their master when he calls. Albedo, I second that notion full-heartedly in, my lord. Once everyone was now assembled, they all got down on one knee and bowed before their king. However, Issei noticed that two individuals were missing. As he was thinking this, a portal opened up and two individuals stepped out. Both of them appeared to be elves, one with lighter skin and one with an extremely darker set of skin. These two women were also queens to Issei. Issei and Rias's mind. Issei, oh good, they're here. Rias, Issei, remind me who these two are again. Issei, well, the first one, her name is Lady Liadrin. She's a blood elf and a highly capable warrior. She's also one of my queens. Well, that is unless you approve, of course. Rias, Issei, you know, as long as you love me, I'll accept anyone else you love as long as I get my fair share of attention. Issei sighs. Okay, good, I was worried there for a moment. Anyway, the second one represide her as Sylvanas Windrunner. She was originally a high elf. Unfortunately, the previous Lich King slew her in battle and rose her as a banshee, and she was forced to serve the Scourge for a while until she eventually broke free from their control. She joined up with myself and my guild as well as the other races to defeat the previous Lich King, and during that time my character and her fell in love, and that till she became one of my queens. Rias, I see, will I approve of them? Just make sure you don't forget about me, love. She mentally winked at him with a blush and a smile. Issei just smiled back at her. Real world. Lady Liadrin, apologies, love, for being late. Sylvanas, indeed, but still it is a great pleasure to see you again, my love. Issei, it is wonderful to see you two again. Issei then remembered about Sylvanas's condition, and he also remembered about hunting down a rare item back in the game that could turn her back to normal. Now was the perfect time to use. Issei, Sylvanas, I believe I have something for you. Come forward and kneel before me. Sylvanas did as she was told and came forward and got on one knee about before her king. Issei, I found this item a while back. I believe you can help turn you back to normal. This immediately got everyone's attention, who were quite surprised, especially Sylvanas's, who immediately widened her eyes and looked straight up to her love. Sylvanas, what? Issei, stay still. Issei then opened up a small portal and reaching his left arm into it, and immediately pulled out an item. It was a clear bottle with pink liquid in it. Issei, Sylvanas, my love, this potion is extremely rare item that has the power to turn the dead back into the living. It took me a long time to find this item. I got specifically for you cause I know how much you suffered under the previous Lich King. However, I am nothing like that monster. True, I have the powers of the Lich King and the might of the Scourges under my command, and I might use them to conquer as I see fit. But I only use them to destroy the enemies of Icecrown Citadel and to protect the people who willingly plug themselves to me, such as the elves, orcs, and dwarfs. Now, my love, are you ready to be alive once more? Sylvanas couldn't believe what she heard. He underdown an extremely rare item for her sake, just so he could return her back to normal. She didn't know what to say, but all she could do was cry tears of joy. Sylvanas, my love. I don't know what to say. Thank you. Issei then nodded his head and crushed the item within his palm and spread the dust of the potion over Sylvanas. The potion started to take effect and a cloud enveloped her for a few moments. Everybody could not see her, but then as the cloud dissipated everyone was in complete awe at what they were seeing. Issei then quickly opened up another small portal, reached and grabbed a mirror and held it up to Sylvanas. Once she looked at her face, she widened her eyes in disbelief. She was back to normal. She was alive. Sylvanas just cried tears of joy. She couldn't believe it. Rias smiled and walked over towards her harem sister. She bent down and offered her hand and smiled at her. Rias, welcome back, dear sister, welcome home. Sylvanas just smiled at her dear sister and accepted her hand, and she was helped up. Everyone else couldn't believe their master's generosity. It just goes to show that their new Lich King, there's nothing like their previous one. This only proves that he is their one and only master, and they will follow him for the remainder of their days. Once all of that was done, everybody including Rias immediately got in front of the Lich King and got down on one knee and bowed their heads toward their master/lover. Albedo, my lord, we the Guardians pledge our eternal loyalty to you. Issei impaled Frostmourne into the ground and arrested both of his hands on the end of the hilt. Issei then began to think to himself. Issei's mind. Issei. The world of the massively popular MMORPG game Yggdrasil drastically changed after its last day of service. I remember it getting shut down just before me. Rias and the others from the peerage had to fight the North god of mischief Loki. I also remember it just before me and my beautiful crimson wife were sent to this world. We met an unknown god, and it seems that he combined both the World of Warcraft universe and Yggdrasil universe together into one, and I must admit that is pretty cool. And it seems that I have the powers of the Lich King from World of Warcraft, including the full armor set and the ruined blade Frostmourne, which means I can use the powers from both my characters from World of Warcraft and Yggdrasil. And it seems that they were combined and I became the new Lich King. But it seems that various rules have changed and the NPCs have begun to move with their own volition. It was then that Rias decided to enter up his thoughts and remind him that they shared a mental link. Rias, don't forget my love, I can still hear you thanks to our newly found mental link. Issei, oh, right, sorry about that. Well, it appears that in this new world I suggest that we both play our parts, of course me being the Lich King, and you my lovely Crimson Queen. Rias just smiles and blushes. Rias, your lovely Crimson Queen, I like the sound of that, my love. I'll make sure to properly thank you during a private time later. Issei started to get excited at the thought of spanking some time with his lovely Rias. Perhaps he'll get the chance to squeeze her massive ass. Hers had always been his favorite because they are part of the woman he truly loves above all else. But anyway, he started to refocus. Issei, alright, let's get back into our roles now, shall we, my love? Rias, indeed, my Issei, my Lich King. Real world. Issei got back into character and ordered his servants to raise their heads. Issei, you may raise your heads. Just a reminder, when Issei is wearing the helm of domination, he has the voice of the Lich King. Everyone immediately raised their heads, looking towards their ruler. Issei, I am very pleased that all of you have come. Albedo, your thanks are wasted on us, my lord. If all of us here have pledged ourselves to you and lived to obey, my lord, I fear that our abilities may not meet your expectations. Despite this, we will strive to meet them in honor of your glorious majesty, our blessed creator. This we vow. Everyone, this we vow. Issei just smiled underneath the helm of domination. Issei, most excellent, my guardians, I have no doubt that all of you will fulfill your duties to the frozen throne without fail. Everyone immediately smiled at their king's declaration of them. Rias just smiled, seeing how her beloved could inspire such hope to all the four guardians of Nazarick and Ice-Crowned Citadel. However, Issei immediately got serious and informed everyone of the current situation. Issei, now then, the situation outside the great tomb of Nazarick, which as you all know is the gateway to the realms under my command and to Ice-Crown itself, is at present entirely unknown to us. With this in mind, I have had Seabass survey the surrounding area. As he said that, Seabass immediately stepped forward and bowed before his king and informed him of the current situation outside the great tomb. Once Issei gave the information, was shocked. Issei, grasslands? Seabass. Yes, my lord, I am afraid the frozen wastes that once surrounded the great tomb of Nazarick are nowhere to be seen. Furthermore, I could not confirm a single building, human, monster, or undead within 1 kilometer of here. It would seem we are completely isolated, my lord. Issei, very good, Seabass, you have served me well. Then it is as I suspected. It appears that we are no longer in continent of Northrend, and that we have been transported to an unknown land by equally mysterious means. Issei turned his attention to the leader of the Floor Guardians and began to give out his orders. Issei, Floor Guardian Leader Albedo and Defensive Leader Demiurge, I have a task for you, both, my lord. Issei, fortified our defenses and work on a way to strengthen our information gathering. The rest of you follow their lead. Everyone, yes, my lord. Issei, Anubarak, I have a task for you as well. Anubarak came forward and bowed his head towards his king, waiting to receive his orders. Anubarak, I await your orders, my lord. Issei, I want you to send out several of your scouts to the surrounding areas. Due to the Nerubians' tunneling abilities, they're the perfect ones for the job. Have them go out and report back what they find. Anubarak bowed his head towards his king, eager to carry out his orders. Anubarak, it shall be done, my master. Issei then turns his head towards Sister Sylvana and gave out orders to her as well. Issei, Sister Sylvana. Sister Sylvana stepped forward and bows towards her king. Sister Sylvana, yes, my lord? Issei, Sister Sylvana, I want several groups of Valkyrie flying patrol above the great tomb of Nazarick. Sister Sylvana, it will be done, my lord. Issei then turned his attention towards Mare. Issei, Mare, there any way to conceal the great tomb of Nazarick? Mare, yes, though it will be difficult if all we use is magic, but if we cover the walls with dirt and vegetation, I think it would be a great way to help conceal us from intruders. 1. However, someone did not like this idea. Albedo decided to speak her mind. She turned her attention towards Mare and sent a small glare towards his way, which kind of scared him a little bit. Albedo, you want to smear the glorious Nazarick, the very entrance to the gateway to Icecrown Citadel, with dirt? Issei immediately turned his attention towards Albedo. He knows she meant well, but he needs to clarify his authority as the Lich King and told her to stand down. Rias and the other queens were in the same vote. Issei, Albedo, that is enough. Rias, indeed, don't make me list remarks. Blood Queen Lonathal, I agree. At this point I say all ideas are welcomed. Sylvanas Windrunner, indeed we know you mean well, but this is not the time. Do not forget your place. Albedo trembled a little bit. She knows she stepped out of line. She quickly bowed her head and apologized towards her master and the queens for outburst. Albedo, yes, my lord and my ladies, I was careless. Please forgive me. Issei nodded his head and turned his attention back towards Mare. Issei, Mare, are you confident the dirt will be sufficient? Mare nodded his head in reassurance towards his master. Mare, why yes, I am, my lord. Issei nodded his head towards Mare but began to put a little bit more thought into it. If they are no longer in the continent of Northrend, then perhaps one day they could recreate the continent here. The frozen wastelands of the Scourge shall once again be remembered, and in time Icecrown will rise to the surface and be permanently stationed there. Issei, Mare, when you do this, I recommend that you use your magic to create snow and ice around the surrounding areas. It's true that we may no longer be on the continent of Northrend, but perhaps we can create a new one in time. I plan to have Icecrown Citadel rise to the surface. I do believe this would be the start of a perfect opportunity to recreate our homeland. The other guardians were surprised at how well their master the Lich King thought this plan out, and they were most definitely on board with that plan. Mare nodded his head, reassuring his king that it shall be done. Mare, yes, my lord, I believe I can. Issei, good, see to it that it is done as soon as possible. Issei then turned his attention back towards Seabass. Issei, Seba, are there any hills surrounding the great tomb that we could use to blend in with? Seabass, no, my lord, I'm afraid not. The area is barren, nothing but flatlands as far as the eye can see. Issei then understood, but fortunately he knows the land can be multitude to suit their needs around the surrounding area. Issei, fortunately the land can be shaped and molded to suit our needs. Would making dummy hill service? Seabass, yes, I do believe we would blend in perfectly with such a surrounding. Issei, excellent, then that is what we shall do. Afterwards we will use illusion magic to hide the open areas we cannot cover, but we shall also cover them with ice and snow. Would that be acceptable, Mare? Mare, of course, my lord, it will be done. Issei then decided to ask all of his guardians and his queens one final question that he needs to get off his chest. Issei, lastly, there is a question I would have each and every one of you answer, including you, my faithful queens. First, Shalter, in your own words, tell me what kind of person I am to you. Shalter immediately smiled and blushed a little bit. She was more than glad to tell her one true lord and master her true feelings about him, and she quickly answered. Shalter, beauty incarnate, there is nothing living or undead that could ever compare with your radiant glow, my lord. Issei then turns his attention towards the others and asked each and every one of them the same question, and they were more than happy to answer. Issei Cocytus. A man whose strength is unrivaled, you are truly worthy of the frozen throne of ice-crowned citadel, always and absolutely. Issei Erua, compassionate, and you're always 3 steps ahead of the game, no make that 10 steps. Issei Mer, you're a leader who's kind as well as a merciful and the one true lord and master of the Scourge. Issei Demiurge, a man who makes wise decisions then acts upon them efficiently, and without any form of hesitation. Also your enigmatic nature makes it highly impossible to protect you. Issei Seabass, you are the true lord and master of the Scourge and the leader of the guild that freed us from Arthas the previous Lich King, and even though the other guild members have left us behind, you and Queen Rias graciously and mercifully stayed behind until the very end. There is no one more worthy of the frozen throne than you, my lord, and for that you have my eternal allegiance. Issei Albedo, you are the highest-ranking member of the guild that freed us from the previous Lich King, and even though you took up the medal of becoming the new Lich King, you did not treat us like our previous master. You are gracious, merciful, kind-hearted, and caring. You are one true and ultimate master of Ice-Crowned Citadel, and the great tomb of Nazarick. Issei Anubarak, you are the one true master of the Nerubians. Even though we are now undead, you still treat us as living beings and respect our straight, and for that I pledge my eternal allegiance to you, my lord. You are my one true master. Issei Lord Merogar, even after you destroyed me, you recreated me, and even though I am undead, you somehow gave me life. If you are my glorious creator and my one true master and the one true ruler of the Scourge, there is no one more worthy of the frozen throne than you, my lord. Issei Lady Deathwhisper, a man who's willing to lay down his life for his comrades and subordinates alike. Issei Cindergosa, the one true ruler of the dragons, both living and undead. Issei Spinestalker, a man who's worthy of the throne above all else. Issei Rhymefang, the one true ruler and master of Ice-Crowned Citadel and all beings living and undead. Issei Valithria Dreamwalker, my savior from a life of eternal torment. Issei High Overlord Sorfang, a man who undefeatable on the field of battle and is worthy of the sword of Frostmourne. Issei Deathbringer Sorfang, the man responsible for reuniting me with my father. Issei Muradin Bronzebeard, a man I've trained since he was just a young lad, and a man who made the ultimate sacrifice in becoming the Lich King, and who I see as my brother. Issei smiled a little bit underneath his helmet. Even though he used to be a NPC, he always considered hearing his advice in game and thought he could use it in the real world. He's glad to have him on his side. He then continued to look towards the remaining guardians and ask their opinions. Issei Kel'Thuzad, a man worthy of the helm of domination and to be the one true master and lord of the Scourge. Issei Queen Azhara, the man responsible for saving the Naga by welcoming us into your home. You saved my people, and for that we have pledged our undying loyalty to you, our one true lord and master. Issei Deathwing, a man that can bring about the cataclysm if he chooses so, but yet shows restraint when necessary, and truly worthy of the title Dragon Tamer, my lord. Issei Professor Putricide, a man who could bring about the end of the world if he so chooses, and the master might behind the plague of undeath, and that can allow me to create any sort of creations for the armies of the Scourge. For that I am ever grateful to you, my lord. Issei Sister Svalin, the one true lord and master of the Frost of Rykel and the Valkyrie. We swear our eternal allegiance to you, my lord. You have given us power beyond imagining, and we are more than happy to serve you in life and in death. Issei Finally, there is you, my queens, and your own opinions. What do you think of me? Blood Queen Lonathal spoke up first. She had a smile and a blush on her face. Even though she was technically an undead elf vampire, she can still feel the life within her. It's thanks to her one true master and her lover that she's able to feel somewhat alive again. Blood Queen Lonathal, a man who I will love for all of eternity, and is the one responsible for letting me be able to feel once again. Even though I am technically undead, you managed to give me life once again, my love, and for that I will always love you. Wherever you go, I will always be by your side. Issei Next is you, Liedrin. What do you think of me? Lady Liedrin, the savior of the entire elven race, and you've saved my life on more than one occasion. You even freed me from captivity from Arthas. You saved my life, and you have earned my eternal love. I will always be by your side now and forever. I love you, my Lich King. Issei Sylvanas, what do you think of me? Sylvanas Windrunner, you just now brought me back to life. Everything that was taken away from me by the previous Lich King, by Arthas Menethil, you have just given me back, so I truly mean what I am about to say. You saved my life, you will have my eternal love now and forever. You've brought back the High Elves, you saved my people, and you saved me. I will forever be by your side now and forever, my love. Issei just smiled and nodded his head. Even though these three will probably never replace everybody else from back home, he will do what he can to provide all the love and care he can for these women. And now, finally, he turned his head towards his Crimson Queen, his ruined princess, his eternal love, Rias Gremory. Issei and Rias, what do you think of me? Rias just looked up with a massive blush and smiled as wide as the ocean itself. Their beautiful blue ocean eyes, tears could be seen coming out, but these were not tears of sorrow, these were tears of joy, and she gladly expressed her love towards Issei. Rias, my love, you saved me from a marriage that I never wanted. You risked your life time and time again to protect me and everybody you cared about from death. You sacrificed everything over and over and over again just so that we could have eternal happiness. You have done more for me and for everyone here that I could possibly imagine. It is that very reason why I will always love you now and forever. You are my king. You are my master. You are my love. You may do with me as you wish. My heart, my mind, my body, and my soul belong to you now and forever. I love you. Issei just smiled. If at all the support from his guardians and his wives he received, he was forever glad to have them in his life. Now it was time to get down to business. Issei, thank you, all of you. I have heard your thoughts and given you your orders. Go work faithfully in the name of the Lich King. Everyone, yes, my lord. Issei, my wives. Would you care to join me? Rias, we would love to join you, my love. Sylvanas, indeed. Lady Lydrin, very much so. Blood Queen Lonathal, even though I am technically one of your queens, I am also one of the floor guardians. I will catch up with you soon, my love. Right now I must carry out your orders. Issei, very well then. Let's go, girls. The three of them then nodded their heads and the group then teleported off somewhere. Once they were gone, everyone immediately got to their feet and started to discuss their plans. Issei and the girls teleported to one of the floors in the great tomb of Nazarick. They just started to make their way towards the surface to get some fresh air. Issei was now starting to think to himself at how serious everybody was in their opinions towards him. Issei's mind. Issei sighs. I'm beat. Why do they have such glorious? Of course I'm very grateful that they think of me that way, but still they were all so serious. Oh boy, this is going to be quite the adventure now, isn't it? Real world. Meanwhile, back with everybody else, they started to discuss their master's plan and were eager to carry out their orders. Mare, I thought I was going to faint. That was so scary. For a moment I could feel his icy aura. That wasn't the same era. I was sure the pressure would crush us. Muradin, don't worry, lads, our master would never do that. Far too kind to us. Cocytus, indeed, to think he would be this amazing. Lord Merogar, I must agree with you, Cocytus. There's a reason why he's the Lord of Master of the Skirt. No one is more deserving of the Frozen Throne than him. Albedo, when he shows his true power and authority, he's even more glorious than I imagined. Valithria, I must agree with you, Albedo, but still, for him to contain so much power, I can't even imagine. Demiurge, indeed. Cocytus, the master seemed very pleased with our vows of fidelity. I hope that is the case. Anubarak, there's no need to worry, my friend. Knowing the master, I bet he was extremely pleased. Deathwing, I must agree with you. I feared he would be like our old master, but I was completely wrong, and I'm glad it was. Even though we were all created to serve the Lich King and the Frozen Throne, if I would, sure he would treat us just the same as that treacherous Arthas. Valithria, Deathwing, you know that is not the case. Our new master is a far better Lich King than our previous one. Kel'Thuzad, indeed, even though we are fine with annihilating the enemies of the Scourge, our new master seems a bit relaxed with doing that. But do not get me wrong, his power is absolute, for he is the one true ruler of Icecrown Citadel. Lady Deathwhisper, Erua. Mare, I couldn't help but notice our master act very different towards you too. Erua, yeah, he completely acted different when he was alone with Mare and me. In fact, he was super kind and gentle, and so was Lady Rias. I can see now why she is the head queen. Sindragosa, I agree with you, Erua. Besides His Majesty, she is the second most powerful being in all of Icecrown and Nazarick. Spinestalker, I agree with you, my lady. Her power is terribly frightening, but it also commands respect. Rhymefang, I agree. Spinestalker, There was no one more worthy of ruling beside our master, but that doesn't mean you and the others are any less powerful. Blood Queen Lonathal, your majesty. Lonathal, no, you are quite right, she's like an elder sister to me and the others. Queen Azhara, you're right, your majesty, she is not only kind to you but all of us as well. I am truly thankful to have her as my queen. Sister Svalin, agreed, but don't count his majesty out just yet. Didn't he also give you and Mare something to drink because he thought you looked thirsty? Erua just nodded her head and smiled. Erua, yeah, that's right. Mare, that just proves his power and mercy makes him more amazing than he already is. Albedo turned around with an absolute smile on her face, and so did Lonathal. Albedo, it's just as you say, Mare, he was incredible, wasn't he? Lonathal, he sensed our feelings and acted on them accordingly. He even cured Sylvanas and returned her to normal. That just proves his mercy and his kindness. Truly no one is more deserving of the Frozen Throne than he is of the 41 original guild members who liberated us. He stands at the top above them all, and when all the others left us he mercifully stayed with us until the very end, and for that he has my eternal love. Everybody was truly grateful that the Lich King stayed behind until the very end. In fact, he could just be the most powerful king they've ever had. Even if another were to replace him, they would never obey him. Even if they are forced, they would desperately try to resist, because their current king is their one true ruler, as everyone was truly grateful towards their master Seabass, Sister Svalin, and Anubarakweir. Eager to carry out their orders for their master, Seabass turned towards Blood Queen Lonathal and Albedo, and bowed his head. Seabass, if there's nothing more, your majesty, I shall return to my duties. I do not know where the Lich King has gone within the tomb, but wherever he is I should stay by his side. That is what's your permission, your majesty. Blood Queen Lonathal, of course, Seabass, I shall be joining you shortly, but first I have my duties to carry out in the Crimson Halls of Icecrown. Blood Queen Lonathal turned towards the other guardians and began to tell them to carry out their orders. Lonathal, Albedo, you will accompany me to the Crimson Halls. The rest of you have your orders. Mare, head outside of the tomb and start creating the defenses for the entrance to Icecrown. Anubarak, send out your finest scouts towards the surrounding areas and have them report back on anything they see. Sister Svalin, you and your Valkyrie will patrol the skies above the Great Tomb. Deathwing, you will be guarding the entrance in your human form for now. Everyone else carry out your duties accordingly. Everyone, yes, your highness. Seabass, of course, my queen. Now if you all will excuse me, I must take my leave. Seabass began to walk out of the arena, leaving everybody else behind but before everyone carry off their duties assigned to them, they had a little discussion first. But before they started, Demiurge noticed that Shalter was still on the ground and he could hear slight whimpers, and he quickly asked if she was all right. Demiurge, is there something wrong, Shalter? Cositus, are you hurt? Ill? Muradin, you all right there, lass? Lord Merogar, if you've hurt we can help you if you would like. Shalter looked up towards everybody with a small blush and a smile suddenly that she was fine, but what she was about to say Albedo was not going to be happy about. Shalter, no, I'm fantastic, I just got a little overstimulated is all. His power was so intense my underwear went through a small crisis. Everybody just had deadpan looks at what she just said. Lonathal just face-palmed and shook her head in annoyance. Albedo started to let out a violent purple aura signaling that she was upset. Albedo, disgusting bitch. Shalter started to get little frustrated herself and retorted. Shalter, ugh, what? Don't pretend you aren't thrilled over the gift he just gave us. He shared so much of his power. If something light that doesn't make you what you must be rancid beneath that skirt, she said while screaming. She also let out a red aura surrounding her body, showing that she was not going to back down. Albedo just retorted, screaming at the top of her lungs, showing that she was not going to back off either. Albedo, you filthy parasite. Shalter, the Lich King made me what I am. I take pride in that, and a big-mouthed idiotic gorilla like you won't change that. Albedo, keep flapping those fangs, Lamprey, see where it gets you. Both of them stared one another down, letting out their respective auras. Meanwhile, everybody just watched as some shook their heads at their idiotic stupidity. Lonathal, however, decided to let those two go at it, seeing that they needed to cool down. She looked towards Demiurge, and he nodded his head, knowing that she gave him permission to handle the situation. He looked back towards everybody and decided to speak. Demiurge, right? Era or Syndragosa? I'll let you deal with the woman issues, he said as he turned around to go speak with the others. Era started to freak out a little bit now that she was told to handle this situation. Era, whoa, not so fast, you can't jump this one on me. Demiurge, If it starts to get bloody, Sindragosa, it might be best if you interfere. Sindragosa, not to worry, I'll take care of it if it gets too bad. But for right now I say Erua's got this. Erua, oh come on! Muradin, Lord Merogar, Anubarak, and Cocytus just shook their heads in the noise. They couldn't believe how childish those two were when it came to their master. Cocytus, goodness, is this really something worth fighting over? Anubarak, indeed it's quite ridiculous. Muradin, you can say that again, lad. This is just stupid. Lord Merogar, how ridiculous. Well, I'm sure Erua's got this. Erua couldn't believe that none of them would help her and started complaining. Erua, oh come on, not you guys too. Erua just shook her head, then decided to go over and try to stop the cat fight from escalating any further. Demiurge, their vitriol aside, I'd be quite interested to see the result of such a union. It would be a great addition to the armies of the Scourge. Mayor, what? Demiurge, it would most certainly pave the way for the future of Ice Crowd and Nazarik's future. Mayor, I'm not sure I follow you. Demiurge sighs, every great ruler needs an heir, don't they? His Majesty graciously stayed behind until the very end, however one day he may leave to join the other members in his guild wherever they went. Therefore, as we all know, Lady Rias is #1 queen, so it would be nice if those two would produce an heir we could graciously pledge our loyalty to. Agreed. As he said that, Mare and a few others understood where he was getting at. Queen Azhara decided to speak up, with Valithria assisting her. Queen Azhara, so you're saying that Lady Rias should get birth to his first child? It does make sense. Valithria, I agree. Professor Putra sighed. Oh, I can hardly wait for the day that will most certainly be good news for everyone. Good news indeed. However, Cocytus and the others overheard, and they were outraged at what they were considering. Cocytus, ridiculous. If we do our jobs, that won't be necessary. Muradin, agreed, lad. Though I must admit it would be nice to see, is it a Lady Rias, Lady Leodrin, Lady Sylvanas, or Lady Lonathal give birth to his children? Demiurge, yes indeed, just think about it. Instead of serving just one lord, we could pledge ourselves to his line. Lord Merogar, Cocytus, Anubarak, and Muradin immediately had stars on their eyes, thinking that it was probably the right idea. After Cocytus, that would be kind of nice. No, wait, what am I thinking? It would be beyond wonderful. I can see it clearly now. I would be Uncle Cocytus. Lord Merogar, indeed I can see it perfectly, truly beyond wonderful. Anubarak, wonderful, try ecstatic. It's beyond wonderful. I can hardly wait for the day. Ha 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 ha. Muradin, instead of an Uncle Hell, I would probably be a grandpa. Ha 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 ha. This is beyond wonderful. As the four of them walked off talking about the possible future of them being uncles and grandpas to their masters, Lion Rhymefang, Spinestalker, High Overlord Sorfang, and Deathbringer Sorfang came over and heard of the commotion. Spinestalker, well, the four of them seemed to be having fun. Rimfang, indeed they most certainly do. High Overlord Sorfang, well, if that does happen, consider me the official trainer of the master's child. I'll teach them all about the art of combat. Ha ha ha. Deathbringer Sorfang, that is a nice thought, father. As the others were discussing, Demiurge decided to ask Mare why he was wearing a skirt. Demiurge, by the way, Mare, is there a particular reason you're wearing female garments? Sindragosa, Deathwing, and Kel'Thuzad, as well as Lady Deathwhisper, decided to ask him, confirmed the question that Demiurge was asking. Sindragosa, actually I'm quite curious as that myself. Why are you wearing female's clothing, Mare? Deathwing, I'm curious as well. Lady Deathwhisper, as am I. Kel'Thuzad, if I remember correctly, wasn't it one of our Master's Guild members that suggested such a thing to you? Mare turned towards Kel'Thuzad and confirmed his question. Mare, that's right, Kel'Thuzad. Actually, this is something that Bakubakuchagama chose for me when they became our leaders. She said I was a cross-dress or something like that. Maybe wearing these clothes makes it easier for me to cast my magic spells. Kel'Thuzad and Demiurge put their hands on their chins, finding the topic of the subject interesting. Demiurge, quite interesting. Kel'Thuzad, indeed. Demiurge, quite interesting indeed. Demiurge looked towards the others as he spoke. Demiurge, perhaps it would be fruitful to try having the males dress in female garments at some point later on. Lady Deathwhisper, I'm not sure about that though. If ever such a time arrives, it might be quite funny. Deathbringer Sorfang, one thing's for sure, you'll never catch it in the orcs in female clothing. That's just nothing but an outright disgrace to our pride. High Overlord Sorfang, I agree, my son makes a valid point. Sindragosa nodded her head in agreement, and decided it was time for everybody to get back on the top. I get hand. She turned towards Cocytus and the others, bringing them out of their daydream of being uncles and grandfathers and got them back to reality. Sidragosa, Cositus, Lord Merogar Muradin, and Anubarak come back to reality. Please, it's time that we begin our assignments. The four of them walked over, still hoping for that future to arrive at one point soon. Cositus. What a magnificent sight, truly a future to wish for. Muradin. You can say that again, lad. One thinks for sure if it does happen, and I know it will, the dwarfs will be drinking till our beards fall off, ha ha ha. Deathwing. We're happy that you're all happy. Sister Svalin agreed. Sister Svalin turned towards where Erwa as well as Albedo and Shalter were hoping that the little cat fight was over. Sister Svalin, Erwa, have Albedo and Shalter finished their little spat yet? Erwa turned towards everyone else and told them that they finally stopped at their bickering. Erwa, yeah, the cat fight is over, but now they're arguing. Spinestalker just shook his head and decided to ask the question. Spinestalker, good grief, what are they arguing about over this time? Albedo and Shalter looked over towards everybody else and decided to answer their little question. Shalter, we are deciding who the master's main mistress will be behind his loyal queens. Albedo, obviously the great ruler of Icecrown Citadel has his wives, but behind them he will need mistresses. It will be strange for someone of our master's power not to have multiple mistresses behind his harem. After all, but only one of us can be his official head mistress behind, of course, our lovely queens, that is. Blood Queen Lonathalif decided to come over and break up the situation, and sent everyone to carry out their duties. Blood Queen Lonathal. Yes, that's quite fasting, but we should really be focusing on our tasks that the master set for us. Albedo bowed her head towards one of the queens and complied with her orders. Albedo. Yes, my lady, of course, let's get back to work. But Shalter, we will discuss this letter at length, she said as she was getting ready to go with the queen towards the Crimson Halls. Shalter just gave her a smirk. Shalter, looking forward to it. Lonathal turned towards everyone and told them to go about their duties. Blood Queen Lonathal. Now then, it's time to begin planning. Everyone, you know your orders, now get to it. Everyone bowed their heads toward the queen and went about their duties. Professor Putricide decided to go back towards the plague works in Icecrown, hopefully to conjure up some newborn powerful soldiers. For the Scourge, Anubarak youth sent out his finest scouts towards the surrounding area. Sister Svalin and her Valkyrie were immediately headed towards the surface and started to begin patrolling around the great tomb. Meanwhile, back with Issei and Rias and the others, there were in the personal chamber of the Lich King, the Frozen Halls. Issei headed towards the Halls of Reflection and decided to store Frostmourne back in place where he kept it. He stepped forward and let go of his sword, and I started to float in place. Issei stared at it for a brief moment before turning around and entering his personal chambers. Once he entered back into the main chamber, Rias, Sylvanas and Liadrin were waiting for him along with one of the battle maids. Her name was Nabro Gamma. She was off standing at the corner awaiting instructions from her masters in case she was needed. Issei then made his way over to a weapons rack and picked up a sword that was all too familiar with him. It was the sword he previously used. Its name was called Charlemagne. Issei, back when I play World of Warcraft I played the class of warrior, and this is Sword of a Light, but now that I am the Lich King I can only wield Frostmourne. But since I'm over a level 100 I should be able to have the strength necessary to wield this blade. Let's see. Real world. Issei tried swinging the holy sword, however it did not go so well as it rejected him. The others noticed this and wanted to see if they could help, but Rias raised her hands and stopped them from continuing. She knew her beloved could do this. Issei's mind. Issei, looks like I still can't wield the weapon properly thanks to me being the Lich King. But if I were to equip my old armor I might just have the necessary skills to wield the blade. It's been over 3 days since me and Rias were transported to this world, and I haven't felt uneasy about my undead form, though technically I am still living in a way. Maybe mentality changed when I was transported to this world. I wonder if Rias has changed as well. I'll ask her about it when in private. But for right now I should probably go ahead and equip my previous armor. Real world. Rias, is everything alright, my love? Issei, yes, everything is fine. I think it's time to equip my previous armor for a short while. As he said that, a magic circle formed around him and the armor of the Lich King disappeared and a new one took its place. His armor was golden in color with silver outlines and had lion-like appendages on his armor. Back amongst his guild he was known as the Golden Lion, which was ironic considering his old friend Serorg Beal had the Lion of Namia as his sacred gear, and he was known as the Golden Lion while in his previous life he was known as the Red Dragon Emperor. He remembered making his character specifically to honor his old friend. Now it's time to equip his armor, and see how it fits. He immediately equipped his armor, and it felt like old times. Once his new set of armor was equipped, he immediately picked up the sword again, and swung it this time successfully. He could feel the power of the blade. It appears he can only use the sword when he uses this armor. Rias was proud of her lover. Rias's mind. Rias. It appears he's figured it out just like I expected them to. Is even though we are no longer in our previous world, I'm just glad to have him by my side, and no matter what the future has in store for us, I will never leave him. Reek world. Issei turned towards Nabril and told him that he and his queens were going outside for a brief moment. Issei, Nabril, myself and the others are going outside the tomb for a bit. Nabril, the guards shall accompany in my lord. Just say the word and it will be done. Sylvanas, that will not be necessary. Nabril, we shall be fine. Nabril spoke up again, trying to convince them that it was dangerous to leave without an armed escort, especially in this new world that they know nothing about. Nabril, but my lords, if you leave without an escort, we will be unable to protect all of you. It is our sworn duty to act as your shields and perish, my lords. Liedrin, we will not allow that. Issei, indeed there is something I want to do discreetly. My decision is made. Is that clear? Nabril bowed towards her king, understanding her orders. Nabril, as you wish, my lord, my ladies. Rias spoke up next and reassured her that everything would be fine. Rias, no need to worry, we will act as our master protection, so there is nothing to worry about. As she said that, the four of them teleported away near the entrance of the great tomb. Issei, this is so tiring. I won't be able to use my powers as the Lich King in this armor. However, that's not to say that this armor isn't powerful in its own right. It is my armor after all, and it comes with its own advantages. Lady Liedrin, I remember you wearing that armor and then training courtyards of Lord Aaron. It's there that we first met, remember? Just a quick reminder, when Issei wearing this armor, his voice is normal, but when he's using the armor of the Lich King, he has the voice of the Lich King. If you don't know what his voice sounds like, I highly recommend you look it up on YouTube, or if you played World of Warcraft, then you know what I'm talking about. Issei, yeah, I remember you kicked my butt in the training courtyards, but now I think I'm on part with you, if not a little bit stronger, my love. Lady Liedrin giggles. Perhaps maybe one day soon we can go to the training courtyards and spar for a little bit. I would love that. Plus that will give us some alone time together. Issei blushes at her boldness. She reminds him of Aquino, and how straightforward she was with him. Now that he thought about it, he couldn't help but feel sad that he could no longer see his precious Aquino. Rias could feel his thoughts, and she was also deeply saddened that she could no longer ever see her best friend again. It truly hurt her towards her core, cause she's been with her from the very beginning. She decided to change the topic and lighten up the mood. She decided to go up to him and grab his right arm and enveloped it in her S and him. Why, look, Rias, don't forget about me, my love. Just remember that I am the head queen here, and I also want my alone time with you. Maybe soon we can plan for some alone time of the bedroom. Will you think about that, love? Sylvanas got a little jealous when she heard that and decided to quickly go up and enveloped his left arm and her S as well. Sylvanas, don't forget about me, lover. You are my master and my king. My mind, heart, body, and soul belong to you. Just remember, whenever you need me, don't hesitate to call. Issei was glad to have these girls in his life, and he was doing his very best not to get a nosebleed underneath his helmet. He decided that the playtime was over and got both of his arms out of the girls and coughed in his hand, trying to get everyone back on topic. Issei, cough, cough. Not to change the topic or anything, don't worry girls, we'll plan some time together alone after this, but we need to stay focused. The girls immediately understood, and the four of them ascended up the stairs. Once they got to the top, they saw a group of people. It was the 3 demon generals under the command of Demiurge and 5 of the most elite Death Knights in all of Icecrown. The 3 demon generals' names were Jealousy, Avarice, and Wrath. Issei's mind. Issei Agha. Jealousy, Avarice, and Wrath? Along with 4 of my best Death Knights. Captain Falric. Captain Marwyn. Scourge, Lord Tyrannus, Thessarian, and High Overlord Darian Mograine. What are the 3 demon generals under the command of Demiurge and the 5 most elite Death Kites in all of Icecrown doing here on the first floor? As he was thinking to himself, Demiurge appeared out of the corner and notices the group. Real world. Demiurge gasps. Issei's mind. Issei, Demiurge. Real word. Demiurge. The 3 demon generals and the 5 elite Death Kites immediately got on their knees and bowed before their king and queens. Demiurge, it's you, my lord and my ladies. My lord, why are you and the queens traveling without an armed escort and wearing your old armor? Issei's mind. Issei, crap. How did he know? Okay, just calm down. Only someone wearing a guild ring like myself and my queens can freely transport from Icecrown Citadel to anywhere in the Great Tomb of Nazarick. Of course he knew. Real world. Rias noticed her lover's body language and decided to speak up for him. Rias, Demiurge. Are you saying that our master walk where he pleases? Demiurge became a little nervous at the Crimson Queen's question and quickly reassured his queen that he meant no disrespect. Demiurge, and oh, your majesty, forgive my rudeness, I did not mean anything by it, I'm just really concerned for yours and his majesty's safety is all. Sylvanas, not to worry, Demiurge, myself and the others are acting as his majesty's bodyguards. Issei, indeed there is a reason for all this. Demiurge thought it over for a brief second, then it immediately came to him, and he praised his master for his line of thought. Demiurge, so that's how it is. As expected of a great ruler such as yourself, my lord, your attention to detail is impeccable. Issei was a little bit confused. Issei's and Rias's minds. Issei, wait, what? I just wanted to go outside for some fresh air. Rias, Issei, I believe it's best to just go with it. Issei, alright then if you say so. Real world. Demiurge spoke up again and decided to not let his masters go outside of the tomb without proper protection. Demiurge, however, my lords, I cannot allow you to leave here without an escort. It's something what to happen to you all. I can never forgive myself. Issei thought it over for a brief second and decided to allow him, and only him, to accompany them. Issei, Very well then, I will allow you and only you to accompany us. Issei and the others began to walk past the group. Demiurge and the others only bowed toward their masters and were grateful. Demiurge, thank you for indulging in my selfishness, my lord, I promise you I will not fail you. Issei and the others continued to walk towards the exit of the Great Tomb. Once they made the way outside, they noticed the Valkyrie flying patrol above the Great Tomb. Sylvanas, it seems the Valkyrie have started their patrols. Lady Liedrin, indeed is there some of the most toughest fighters we have in all of Icecrown. Rias, agreed, after all they were created by the Lich King himself. As the group continued to look up into the sky, that can help but notice how beautiful the night was, especially Issei. Issei's mind. Issei, is amazing, I've never seen a night as clear as this one before, not even back on Earth. The artificial sky blue planet made on the 6th floor wasn't pressure, but it didn't hold a candle to this. Real world. Issei reached into an artificial dimension and pulled out several necklaces, one for himself and Sylvanas and Liedrin. Rias didn't need one because she had her demonic wings. Issei gave the girls the necklaces. They already knew what they were and they put them around their necks, and so did Issei. These necklaces were enchanted with a flying spell. Issei looked towards the others and they nodded to him, and he nodded back. Issei, fly. In an instant, Issei, Sylvanas, and Liedrin began to fly in the air. Rias released her demonic wings and quickly joined up with them. Demiurge immediately changed into his demon form and released his wings and quickly joined his masters in the air as well. Issei and the girls flew very high in the sky, enough that they breached the clouds. Once they did, they saw the full moon, and the night is clearest day. Issei took off his helmet, revealing his face. He then tossed his helmet aside, and it disappeared into thin air. Issei and the girls just looked up into the starry night sky. Issei, we can see everything, we're just the moon's light. Rias, indeed my love, it is quite beautiful. Sylvanas, it's unbelievable beauty at its peak. Liedrin agreed. Issei continued to look out across the land. Issei, the stars in the sky glitter like jewels in a treasure box. Demiurge managed to catch up with the others and he commented on his master's thoughts. Demiurge, I believe this world exists so that you may dominate it and adorn yourself with its infinite riches, my lord, and we guardians and the Scourge exist to help you do so, my lord. The girls heard what Demiurge said towards Issei, and he was right. Should he choose to do so, they will stand behind him 100%. Issei, You could be right about that. Perhaps I was sent to this world to obtain those jewels for myself along with every treasure that shines beneath them, but too hard. Such things would be the height of selfishness. Instead, I could use them to adorn the Great Tomb and all of Icecrown, and the residents of the resigned within, and any friends or allies of Icecrown. Demiurge, Rias, and the others bowed their heads toward their master. Rias, if you wish it, we will use all the power of the Frozen Throne to obtain it for you, my love. Issei, ha ha ha. We don't even know what exists in this world. It's a little early for a quest like that, my love. Then again, it makes me think the most enjoyable thing right now might be taking over the world. This did not go unheard by Demiurge, who did his best to hide a shocked expression. He understood Master's intentions now, and he would do everything he could to make sure this world will belong to the Lich King, and would fall before the might of the Scourge. Issei and Rias's mind. Issei, who am I kidding? There's no way we could pull that off. Rias, I don't know. Issei, from what I seen it looks like we have the forces to do so, but knowing you would like to watch people suffer endlessly. You do whatever you can to protect those you care about, and right now I can see that you care about everybody here and that you would do whatever you can to protect them, and that is what I love about you, Issei. Issei just looked over and smiled at his Crimson Queen. Issei, thanks Rias, you're always very supportive of me. Rias just returned the smile. Issei, but then again, maybe it might be a good idea to spread the name of the Lich King throughout this world. Rias, I like that idea. Perhaps we should pursue that goal. Real world. Issei and the others then noticed down below that the earth started to move and started to form walls around the great tomb. It was all thanks to Mare using his magical abilities. Issei, that's Earth Surge, a powerful earth spell. He's using his skill to increase his magic range, and one of his class skills is to amplify the effect. Well done, Mare. Rias, he most certainly is skilled. Sylvanas, indeed. Lyedrin then noticed the clouds start to get darker and a bit of thunder could be heard. Then it started to snow and ice could be seen being formed on the ground. Lyedrin, he's done really well recreating the frozen lands of Northrend. Issei, most certainly. Demiurge decided to speak up and asked his master what he planned to do. Demiurge, my lord, may I ask what you plan to do? Issei, I want to thank Mare for his hard work. What do you all think I should give him as a reward? Rias, whatever you decide, I'm sure he will be most happy with my love. Sylvanas, I agree with Rias. No matter what you give him, I say he'll be grateful for. Lyedrin, Demiurge, what do you think our master should reward him with? Demiurge, I'm sure he would be happy just to have his majesty would speak to him, my lady. Issei, Issei quickly resummed his helmet, and put it back on, then descended to where Mare was with the others following suit. Once they descended to the ground, Mare noticed the group, and quickly ran over to them. Mare, oh your majesties! Were you here? Oh no, did I make a mistake already? Rias and Sylvanas just smiled and walked over towards him, and patted his head, each taking their turn. Rias, not at all, Mare, you are doing a magnificent job. Sylvanas, indeed you've made it look just like the lands of Northrend. Mare just smiled at his queen's compliments. Mare, thank you, my ladies, I tried really hard to make it look like home. I hope it's to your satisfaction. Lyedrin, you've done a magnificent job. It truly does resemble home. We are very proud of you. Mare felt a little bit embarrassed at his queen's compliments, but he was more than happy to do his duty to the frozen throne. Issei then came over and stood in front of Mare. Issei, Mare, the work you're doing is of the utmost importance. It will protect Nazarick from intruders, and more importantly, you will be ensuring that the entrance to Icecrown is kept safe and secure. I wanted you to know just how satisfied I am, because someday Icecrown will rise to the surface once more, and when that time comes, we will be more than ready to face any threat that comes our way. Don't forget, your performance thus far has been of the utmost satisfactory in my eyes. You have done well. Mare bowed his head towards his king, thanking him for his praises to a servant like him. Mare, thank you, my lord. Issei then held out his hand, and a ring formed in his palm. This was the ring that he and his guild created for each of their members. Issei, I would like you to have this. Mare gasps. That's a ring of the legendary guild that raided Icecrown Citadel. But only members of the guild are allowed to wear an item like this. I can't possibly accept it, my lord. Issei, there's no need to panic, Mare. Moving between the floors of the great tomb can be difficult. This will help allow you to do so unimpeded and easily complete your work. Now take this ring and serve the frozen throne well. Mare reached out and grabbed the ring from Issei's hand and put it on his ring finger on his left hand. The ring then started to shrink, matching the size of his finger. Mare was in complete awe of the gift he just received. He then looked back up towards his master and expressed his gratitude. Mare, thank you so very much, my lord. I'll be sure to work extra hard for you in the honor of Icecrown Citadel. I swear at my lord it'll be worthy of this gift. Issei, myself and the others are depending on you, Mare. I know for a fact that you will not let us down. Mare, yes, my lord. By the way, my lord, I was wondering, why are you wearing your old armor? Issei, you well, that's... However, just before he could finish coming up with an explanation, a voice got his attention as well as the others. They turned towards the voice, and it was Blood Queen Lonathal. She was accompanied by Albedo and Sister Svalin. Lonathal, It's simple, Mare. She then descended down and joined the group with Albedo and Sister Svalin flanking either of her sides. Issei Lanathal. Demiurge quickly turned and bowed his head towards one of those queens. Demiurge, your majesty. Lanathal nodded her head in his direction, and he quickly rose. She then turned her touch it back towards Mare. I continued with her explanation. Lanathal. It's for our sake. He didn't want to bother any of us while we were working. It's like a disguise. If we knew that he was here watching us, we would stop working to praise him, and if that happened, then nothing would ever get done around here. Isn't that right, my love? She turned towards Issei and gave him a lovely smile. Issei nodded his head towards her and smiled back. Issei. As expected of you, my love, you know exactly what I was thinking. Lanathal. Well, I am one of your wives. It's only natural for me to guess what you're thinking. Issei, indeed. Now, Sister Svalin, have the Valkyrie found anything on their patrols? Sister Svalin. No, my lord. Fortunately, it would seem we are pretty isolated out here, so I doubt anyone would be able to sneak up on us, and even if they did, that wouldn't make it past the outer defenses. Issei. Very good. And what about Anubarak? Albedo stepped up and bowed to her ruler, and explained the current situation. Albedo. Anubarak has already sent out his scouts. Not to worry, my lord. If they find anything that is a threat, they will report back immediately, and we will deal with it quickly and effectively. Issei nodded his head in response. Issei. Good. The last thing we need right now is to make any enemies in this world, especially since we don't know about it just yet. For now, the armies of the Scourge will be kept at bay until we know who our enemies are and who we can forge alliances with. Everyone nodded their head, acknowledging their master's orders. Mare then spoke up. Mare. If that is all, my lord, may I be excused? Issei. Yes, Mare, continue with your work. Mare. Yes, my lord. Issei then opened up his hands once again, and several more rings appeared. Issei, Rias, Sylvanas, Lanathal, and Lyadrin, here are several more rings for you all as well. The girls graciously accepted their husband's gift, and placed the rings on their ring fingers. Girls, thank you very much, love. Issei then smiled and blushed at his girls. He then turned his attention towards Albedo and Demiurge. Issei, Albedo and Demiurge, I shall give you all on the others' rings another time. Albedo, we understand, my lord. Demiurge, indeed, I only hope that one day we can prove ourselves worthy of such treasures. That bowed their heads towards their master. Issei nodded his head towards them. Issei, I have done what I planned to do. I shall return to Icecrown before I can cause any more distractions. Issei then teleported away back towards Icecrown Citadel, with the girls soon teleporting as well. Following him, meanwhile, far off somewhere in the middle of the night, we see a large group of armored knights riding horses off to their destination. A man and his soldiers were on top of the hill overseeing preparations for the upcoming operation. We will attack the next village tomorrow morning and guide the beasts to their cages. The man had an evil smirk and a large scar across the left side of his face. All the preparations were being made. Further operations soon. Their target will face the might of the slain Theocracy. A large group of knights totaling around over 50 soldiers was riding through the countryside, with the leader riding in the very front. The man was Talon, and a muscular build with tan skin and a beard. This man's name was Gazef Stranov. He was the chief warrior of the proud kingdom of Rias. The soldiers he had accompanying him were part of the royal army. Their armor was mixed. They had armored chest plates, armored shouter pauldrons, and armored shin guards. The rest of their armor was mostly lethir. The soldiers continued to ride through the countryside. One of the riders, being the vice commander of the group, rode beside Gazef, informing him there was smoke up ahead. Vic, commander, sir, the village is burning. Gazef looked up ahead. Only does he smoke off into the distance, indicating that there was truth behind the vice commander's words. He immediately put on a serious face as he and his men continued to ride ahead to the burning village. Once they got there, they immediately did what they could to help out the survivors. Soldiers were helping wounded civilians and moving debris out from underneath them, doing whatever they can to provide the aid necessary. All the while, Gazef looked on with both frustration and sorrow for his people. Immediately towards the vice commander and give his orders. Gazef, Vice Chief, these people need help. Make sure they get back to Urantal safely. The Vice Commander decided to speak up and voice his opinion towards his commanding officer, whom he respected. Vice Commander, General? Gazef, what is the Vice Chief? Vice Commander, something's wrong here. The king ordered us to track down and terminate the bandits responsible that had been attacking villages, right? Gazef nodded his head towards his question. Gazef, that's correct. Vice Commander, okay, then why did they send us out here with only 50 soldiers, especially when the Baharuth Empire might be responsible for this? Gazef understood his vice commander's concerns and quickly addressed them. Gazef, it's a top-secret operation. The vice commander started to get a little frustrated thinking he knew who was really behind this and voiced his opinion towards his general. Vice commander, sir, you know who's behind this. Gazef looked towards his vice commander closely thinking he knew what he was talking about. Vice commander, the noblemen want you to fail, sir. If they can rule the king's most trusted general, the name would have a clear path to the throne. It's so transparent. Gazef gave him a hard look and told him that now was not the time. Gazef, that's enough, Vice Chief. However, the Vice Commander pushed further on the argument. The only reason he was pushing further was because he respected his general more than anything else. Vice Commander, but sir, you know I'm telling the truth. We're walking straight into a trap. Our forces should head back to Irantal as fast as possible. If we split up now, it will only weaken us. A few villages may be lost, but it's a small price to pay in order to keep the most powerful swordsman in the country alive. Gazef just looked away and sighs to himself, knowing that he was right, but he had a duty to fulfill to the king and to the kingdom, and that was to save His Majesty's people no matter the cost, and find the criminals responsible for all this destruction. Gazef then looked out towards the burned ruins of the village and continued to speak to the vice commander. Gazef, I was born a commoner. The vice commander nodded his head, agreeing with his general, telling him he was also born as a commoner as well. Vice commander, so was I. Gazef, I know what it's like to live in these villages, to fear monsters at every turn, always waiting for death. The vice commander nodded his head in agreement. Vice commander, same here. Gazef, then you know what it's like to have hope, praying to God that someone out there would actually show up to protect you. Vice commander, of course I wished every single day that a hero would arrive. But in the end not one person ever came. Gazef just looked back at his vice commander with a determined expression. Gazef, then let us be the ones who do show up. We'll let these people know that it's okay to have hope, that prayers are answered, and that heroes do exist. The vice commander just nodded his head in agreement. However, as all this was going on off in the distance in the forest, the soldiers failed to notice that they were actually being watched. Several pairs of eyes could be seen through the tree line. Indistinct clicking noises could be heard. Several Nerubian scouts could be seen keeping an eye on the current situation. Nerubian Scout 1. We should report this back to His Majesty. He will want to know of the current development. Nerubian Scout 2. Indeed, we'd best be going before we are spotted. However, their clicking noises could be heard far off in the distance. Gazef, thanks to his senses, immediately picked up on the noises and turned towards the tree line with a serious expression. This did not go unnoticed by the vice commander. Vice commander, general, what is, sir? Is everything all right? Gazef, I don't know, but for some reason I feel like we're being watched right now. The vice commander put on a serious expression and continued to look out into the distance. However, he could not see anything. Vice commander, I don't see anything, sir. Are you sure we're being watched? Gazef nodded his head and turned his attention back towards the vice commander and gave his orders. Gazef, Vice Chief, take over for a moment. I'll be right back. The vice commander nodded. It took over the relief efforts. All the Gazef quietly made his way over towards the tree lines, being quietly as possible. He then heard several clicking noises and quickly took cover. Behind a tree he poked his head out, only to be completely shocked and surprised at what he saw. Massive spider-like beings were talking towards each other. Gazef, by the light, what in God's name are those things? However, he was quickly noticed by the Nerubian scouts. Nerubian Scout 1, we've been spotted. Quickly, we need to escape. The first of the scouts quickly dug his way underneath the ground and disappeared. Gazef appeared out of hiding and drew his sword and quickly got in front of the first scout, demanding to know who and what he was. Gazef, stop right there. I am Gazef Stranov of the Rias kingdom. Who and what are you? The Nerubian scout was prepared for battle just in case, but he knew he had to escape quickly and report back to the Lich King on the current situation, so he knew that he had to get out of there as fast as possible. Nerubian scout, I am what is known as a Nerubian, a race of insectoid-like beings from the ancient kingdom of Azul-Nerub of the Nerubian Empire. However, now my people are now undead, but we see that as a sign of greatness in service to the Great One, the one true Lord and Master of the Scourge. Gazef became interested to who this Great One was and the Scourge, this thing a Nerubian he was known as. Apparently he said his race was now undead minions in the service to this Great One. He knew he had to get more information, and he knew he had to capture this being. Gazef pointed his sword at Nerubian and demanded his surrender. Gazef, in the name of my kingdom I ordered you to surrender, and come quietly. The Nerubian immediately saw opening and took it. Nerubian scout, I'm afraid I must decline. The scout immediately bolted past Gazef and he blocked an incoming attack by the creature. However, just as he turned around and prepared to counterattack, the Nerubian immediately dug its way into the earth, disappearing. As a result, Gazef groaned in frustration and immediately shived his sword, all the while thinking to himself, Gazef's mind? Gazef, whatever that thing was, I could tell that there was truth behind every word he spoke, especially about this scourge. Something tells me that dark days are ahead and that we must be prepared for the worst. Real world. Gazef immediately headed back towards the burning village and towards the rest of his men. He knew he had to report to the king about this new development. Whatever those things were, you could tell that they were not possibly responsible for this. He knew that they were just observing right now. He had to focus on the current development and find out who really was responsible for attacking the people of the kingdom. Meanwhile, back at Ice-Crown Citadel, Issei was in the armor of the Lich King and sat atop the frozen throne. Rias was by his side and Seabass was also there as well, attending to his duties as his master's personal butler. Issei was looking through a mirror made of ice, observing the outside world from afar, wondering what mysteries lie in this world and who had their potential enemies might be. Earlier that day he received reports from the scouts that an Uberak sent out. Apparently several villages nearby were being burned to the ground and their citizens massacred. Currently Issei was assessing the situation, looking over the burnt ruins of these villages, but he was also curious as to one of the scouts' reports saying that a warrior was brave enough to challenge these scouts, and that honestly intrigued him a bit. Perhaps he could meet this warrior one day and find out who he really is, and maybe, just maybe, he might have a new elite champion, an elite death knight to add to the ranks of the Scourge. Issei and Rias continued to assess the situation, seeing if there was any outside threats that they need you to be aware of, and perhaps they might find allies that could be useful and help them navigate this world. They continued to look through the ice mirror that showed forest and wide plains. Issei was using his hand to move the sight of the mirror from spot to spot, giving him the better view of the surroundings. Issei's and Rias's minds. Issei, I just need to figure how to work this mirror of remote viewing, then we can really secure this surrounding area of the Great Tomb. Rias. Agreed, and once we know our surroundings we can better prepare a defense in case any invaders tried to attack. Issei. Well, they would be foolish enough to try, knowing that there's a whole army of undead waiting for them. Rias. Agreed, love. Real world. Issei continued to move the viewing sight around more, only to hear Seabass clap in response for his master. Both Issei and Rias looked towards Sabas in response. Seabass. Congratulations, my lord and my lady, I knew you were both doing it. Issei. Thanks, Seabass, as always I am very grateful for your support. Rias. As am I, Seabass. I hope that in the future you will continue to serve the Frozen Throne well. Seabass immediately bowed his head towards his masters and spoke. Seabass. Of course, my lord and my lady, that is my duty. As your personal butler I shall continue to serve the Frozen Throne well until my dying breath. It is the sole reason I was reprogrammed by Lord Touchme, one of the greatest swordsmen in the guild. It is my great honor to serve the one true Lich King and all of his lovely queen's orders, no matter how tedious thing might seem. Both Issei and Rias nodded their heads in acknowledgments. Issei, very good, let us see what's happening in this new world of ours. Issei raised his hand again and continued to view what was going on outside of their borders. It was then that he came across a village, and he could immediately see there was a lot of activity in it, and it was quite curious. Issei, what is this, a town festival? Rias and Seabass gave a closer look towards the village. Rias could immediately tell that something was wrong, and so did Seabass. Rias. No, definitely not. Seabass. Agreed, my lady, something appears to be wrong. Issei. Let us have a closer look now, shall we? Issei opened up his hand to zoom in further into the village, and they immediately saw that the villagers were running for their lives from what appeared to be knights in shiny armor. Several of them were on horseback and were striking down several of the villagers, killing them in cold blood. Issei's eyes glowed a brighter blue, and he glared at the knights underneath the helm of domination. Rias could immediately tell that our lover's rage was boiling. She could feel his icy arrow as she reached out and enveloped his right hand with her own in order to help calm him down. It helped somewhat, but he was still very angry at the moment. If he spoke up again, with his voice sounding more darker than it already was, you could even see Seabass showing small traces of sweat on his forehead. He knew how powerful his master's wrath could be. He was just very glad that he was in service to his lord and master, and not his enemy, because he knows that sooner or later these fools would face the true wrath of the Lord of the Scourge, Issei. Those men don't appear to be bandits. Issei saw several more villagers getting cut down without any mercy. He saw one of the knights headed open, his face played, and he was grinning like a madman enjoying the which pissed Issei off even more, but for some reason, even though he was angry, he felt no empathy towards the humans. Was it because he was also partially undead now, or wasn't something else anyway? For the time being it was probably better for things to play out as they were until they knew who this enemy was. Issei started to think to himself. Issei's mind. Issei, what's up with me? How could I watch this violence so calmly and yet angry at the same time, and yet also feel somewhat nothing? Back home in the beginning when I was weak I would have probably passed out at the sight of it, but over time I became strong enough to endure the pain to protect those I care about, so blood and gore became something I just used to, but still. Real world. Issei then noticed a villager looking up from the pool of blood mouthing something. Rias and Seabass turned towards their master wondering what their orders would. Seabass, what are your orders, my lord? Rias, whatever your decision I will support you and stand by your side. Issei thought it over for a moment, and decided that for the time being they would have no choice but to stand down. Issei, leave them be for now. I see no good reason to interfere on their affairs. Rias looked at her love a little sadly. Back home he would have rushed to aid anyone in need, but perhaps becoming the Lich King brought about something different for her lover entirely. Seabass understood his orders and bowed his head. Sabes, as you wish, my lord. Issei looked towards Seabass only to whiten his eyes a little bit. Luckily Seabass didn't notice, but for that brief moment Issei saw something that would change his view. He saw his old guild friend Lord Touchme, but he saw someone else. He saw his old friend that stepped by him through everything, that was a noble swordsman in his own right. He was a true knight, and his best friend, it was Kiba. Issei's mind. Issei, Touchme, and Kiba. Flashback. Issei immediately thought back to all the times Kiba was at his side fighting for a noble cause, fighting for the person that they cared about the most. Rias. He was a noble knight in service to the Gremry household. He knew his best friend more than anyone else. He knew the pain he went through, but his friend knew the pain that he also went through, and he knew that his best friend wouldn't stand aside and watch innocents die. He would jump straight in just as he would. Flashback. And Rella world. Issei got up from the frozen throne and immediately issued his orders. Issei, Seabass, I am paying them a visit. Prepare a group of Frostvrykal and several Valkyrie for battle, and tell Albedo to prepare herself for battle. She will be accompanying me and Queen Rias to the village. In the meantime, raise the security level of Ice Crown Citadel to maximum while we are away. Seabass immediately bowed his head and obeyed his orders. Seabass, consider it done, my lord. Rias just smiled at her lover. That's the Issei she remembered and fell in love with, always willing to put his life on the line to save others. Rias, it seems you haven't changed one bit after all, my love. Issei looked towards Rias and smiled underneath the helm of domination. Issei, and I never will. Rias. Issei and Rias then descended upon the frozen steps and made their way to the teleport gate. Issei began to think amongst himself. Issei's mind. Issei, Kiba, I will strive to live by your example, my friend. Real word. Issei and Rias made their way to the frozen halls. Once they were there, Issei retrieved Frostmourne, and it was ready for battle. Once everything was ready, the two of them opened to teleport gate, and immediately teleported towards the outskirts of the village. Meanwhile we cut back towards two young girls, one slightly younger, and had brownish, reddish hair, while the other one was older, and had dirty blonde hair. She was clearly wounded trying to protect her younger sister with a large gaping wound on her back. The younger girl was clearly worried for the older one, and it was clear that these two were sisters. Henri, the older girl, now identified as Henriette, continued to cover her little sister, trying her best to protect her even if they cost her life. The two knights that chased her were right behind them. One of them stepped forward and prepared his sword for the final blow, and it was clear he was enjoying this. Knight 1, ha 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 ha. Henri braced herself for the incoming attack and braced herself for death's cold embrace while still continued to hug her sister, doing whatever she can to protect her. She then had a flashback of her father in the village telling her to run and take her sister that was named Nimue and to run away as far as they could. Flashback. Henri's father. Run, Henri, quickly take Nimue and get out of here as fast as you can. Run. He was trying to protect his daughters by attacking the knights, however they quickly tackle him to the ground with one of the knights killing him with his sword. Flashback. And Henri, brace yourself for the inevitable. However, something strange occurred. It started to get cold. Really cold, even the knights noticed it. Knight 1, hey, why the hell is it getting so cold? Knight 2, I don't know. Wait, what's that? Gasps, as the knights noticed the clouds were starting to get dark and even thunder and lightning could be seen. Both Henry and Ninu started to get a little freaked out. Then out of nowhere a portal opened up right behind them. The knights and both Henry and Ninu looked at the portal that opened up. At the top of the portal a large skull of animal could be seen. The gate was flushing with purple and pink mixed together with blue swirling around. Then what came through shocked everyone to their very core. A massive armored figure emerged from the gates with his eyes as cold and icy as death itself. The armored figure carried a sword and the arrow it let off scared everyone. What emerged from the portal was the Lich King himself, Issei Hayato. The Lich King raised Frostmourne and pointed at the knight per now shivering and paralyzed with utter fear due towards their size differences with, say aka the Lich King being a little bit bigger and taller than the average human. Issei began to speak in his Lich King voice which scared the living shit out of the knights. Henry held on to Ninu tightly as the both of them were also terrified, but for some reason they could tell all that this armored figure's wrath was not directed at them but towards their attackers instead. Issei grasped heart. As soon as he said that, dark energy expelled itself from the blade launching towards the first knight. Once it reached him it went inside of him and crushed his heart, instantly killing him as he fell backwards. Dead on the ground, the second knight was completely scared out of his mind. All the while Henry and Nimi looked up towards the armored stranger in complete shock and awe. Issei's mind. Issei. Well, that's a relief. It looks like the powers of Frostmourne are working properly. Real world. Knight 2. It's a monster. Issei continued to think inside of his mind. Issei's mind. Issei. I felt nothing after killing that soldier back then. I usually spared my enemies after beating their asses, of course. Interesting, it seems as if I've stopped wanting to spare my enemies altogether, but in truth I won't spare the ones like what these knights are doing. Soon my enemies will know the full power of the Lich King. Real world. The knight, although scared out of his mind, tried to defend himself by getting ready for combat. However, the icy aura that the Lich King was giving off screamed death itself. Issei then spoke. Issei, what kind of man can murder women and children? You now trespass upon the hollow ground of the Scourge. And you'll help me test my power whether you want to or not, mortal. Now come. Frostmourne hungers. The knight tried to run away screaming for his life. However, Issei outstretched his hand with Frostmourne and shot dark energy from it. Once collided with the knight, he disintegrated, turning him into nothing but ash. Issei, pathetic. That wasn't even 1% of my power. The Lich King looked back at Henry and Ninu, then looked back at the fallen knight. Issei, let's try making an undead. Warrior of the frozen wastes, rise up, I command you to fight. Kill and die for your master, arise. Dead knight. Issei used Frostmourne and levitated it over the dead knight. Then dark mystic powers came out of the blade and went into the knight. The next thing that happened frightened Henry and Ninu. The dead knight began to rise up and it started to transform into an undead. Issei himself was a little bit freaked up by the power he just displayed. Issei's mind. Issei, whoa. The runic power taking over a dead body, I remember, didn't work like that in Yggdrasil. However, I do remember something similar like that happening in World of Warcraft. Kind of cool. I think. Real world. The undead knight began to rise up and it started to transform into an undead. Its armor changed, and it now had a massive shield and sword. This was a death knight. However, unlike his elite ones, this one was just one of his standard death knights. The death knight is turned towards his master and bowed. Issei immediately gave out his orders. Issei, death knight. Kill anyone in the village that who looks like how you previously were before. The Death Knight nodded his head and let out a fierce roar, signaling he was ready for battle and it willing to give his life for his one true lord and master. The Death Knight immediately turned towards the village and started running his way towards it. Issei began to think to himself that he should probably thought his orders before speaking. Issei's mind. Issei, you, I need to think my orders through from now on. What the hell is the point of summoning a defensive monster if I'm just gonna send him away? Real world. As he was thinking to himself, he then noticed that several more individuals came through the portal that he opened up. It was Rias as well as Albedo, all dressed up in her battle gear, and behind them a group of Frostvrykul emerged from the portal. A few of the Frostvrykul warriors were riding on the backs of blue proto-drakes. Also several Valkyrie emerged from the portal and started hovering in the air, forming a protective circle around the area. One of the Frostvrykul warrior immediately came over and got on one knee and bowed towards his death god Issei, the Lich King. His name was Skadi the Ruthless. One of the Valkyrie came over and bowed as well. It was Sister Sylvana. Albedo came over and got down on one knee and bowed as well. Rias immediately went over to stand beside her king. Albedo, apologies my lord, it took longer than expected to get here. I apologize to your greatness that you had to wait, my death god. Issei, don't apologize, you and the others arrived right on time. But I am curious, what are you doing here, Sister Sylvana? I did not summon you or the other Valkyrie? Sylvana looked up towards her death god and explained the situation. Sister Sylvana, apologies my lord, but Her Majesty Lady Rias informed us of the situation and told us to come with. Issei looked over towards Rias with a questioning look, though no one could see his facial features underneath the helm of domination. She quickly explained, Rias, I have a feeling that those knights aren't the only ones we're gonna have to be dealing with, so I thought it would be wise to bring small group of Valkyrie with us led by Sister Sylvana. Issei nodded his head in understanding. He knew how good Rias was planning out things ahead of time, so her decision was greatly appreciated by him. Issei, very well, Sylvana, you and the rest of the Valkyrie will accompany us on this mission. Issei then turned his attention towards the leader of the Frostmourne, Skadi the Ruthless, and gave him his orders. Issei, Sakti the Ruthless, you and the other Frostmourne will be in the front taking care of the ones that the Death Knight missed. Show them no mercy. Skadi immediately bowed his head before his death god and gladly accepted his orders. Skadi, it will be a pleasure, and my lord, glory to the death god. Skadi turned around and raised his arms in the air, praising his lord and master as well as the other Vrykul and the Valkyrie alike. Issei then turned his attention back towards Albedo. Issei, Albedo, I am quite impressed that you managed to gather our forces are quickly. Well done. Albedo was honored that her master praised her. Albedo, thank you for saying so, my lord. Now then, how would you like me to deal with these pathetic mortals? Albedo gestured towards both Henry and Ninu. The Frostmourne and the Valkyrie were all staring down at them, considering how massive they were. Both Henry and Ninu were terrified at their gazes. They never before seen beings like them before. Henry held on to Ninu tightly, embracing her sister. Both Issei and Rias could see the terrified expressions. Issei immediately told Albedo and the others that they were of no threat. Issei, these two are no threat. The pathetic humans wearing the armor are our enemies, and they are the ones we are after. Albedo, Sylvana and Skadi bowed their heads toward their master, understanding their orders. Sylvana, we understand, my lord. Rias then noticed that Henry was bleeding. She got down on one knee and offered a warm smile towards the two sisters. Rias, my dear, you're hurt, and you're bleeding. Issei, he immediately opened up a pocket dimension and pulled out a healing potion. Issei, here, drink this. Issei held up the bottle that contained the red liquid. Henry became a little nervous when she saw that, thinking it was blood. Henry, blood? Issei continued to hold the bottle right in front of them. With a little hesitation, she decided to take it, but her little sister told her not to. Henry, if you insist, I'll drink it, but my Nemu, no, don't do it, Henry. Issei thought to himself about the current situation. Issei, what the hell is going on? Did they forget I just saved their lives? Why don't they trust us? Rias looked to him and spoke. Rias, they must still be in shock from what just happened. Issei, you're probably right. Real world. Albedo's sister Sylvana and Skadi the Ruthless, along with the other Frostmourne and the other Valkyrie, became enraged at the girls' behavior, because in their minds they insulted not only their king but their death god as well. Albedo and Sylvana raised their weapons, preparing to strike down the girls. Sister Sylvana, how dare you? Albedo, you dare to insult your savior? Before the two of them could strike them down, Issei quickly ordered them to stand down. Issei, enough! The Lich King shouted so loud it sent a small shockwave through at the area. The girls as well as the others became a little frightened. Albedo and Sylvana quickly got on one knee and bowed. Issei, lower your weapons at once. Sylvana, yes, my lord. Albedo, as you wish, my lord. Rias stepped in and reprimanded them. Rias, these two are no threat. If you dare to raise your weapons to them again, you will know what true pain is like. Am I understood? Rias's eyes began to glow their crimson red, and she let out her crimson aura. Everyone immediately bowed towards their crimson queen and understood the Vrykul and Valkyrie were shaking a little bit. If there was one of the persons they feared more than their death god, it was the crimson queen herself. She was second only to the Lich King himself. Issei got down on one knee and explained to the girls that everything was fine and that the portion that he held in his hand was not blood. Issei, my apologies for shouting. What I'm holding in my hand is not blood, this is a healing potion, take this, and your wounds will be healed. Henry took the potion from Issei, unscrewing the bottle, and drinking it only, and then she could feel her wounds healing as good as new, as if they were never there in the first place. Henry, wow. Issei, I assume the pain is gone now? Henry, yes it is. Issei then stood and asked them a few questions. Issei, tell me, have you ever heard of magic before? Henry was confused by the question but nodded her head in confirmation. Henry, yes. I actually have a friend who frequents our village, he's a pharmacist who practices magic. Issei nodded his head in understanding. Issei, perfect, then it is not hard to understand. I may be a warrior, but I am also a magic caster myself, as you saw with me raising the undead Death Knight. Rias stepped forward and placed a magical barrier around the two sisters, protecting them. Rias, don't worry, I just casted 2 protection barriers around you, you'll be safe from here on out. Issei, indeed, but just in case, take these as well. Issei opened up another portal and got 2 small horns out of it, tossed them towards the girl. Issei, if you blow the horns, an army of goblins will appear to do your bidding. Do not hesitate to use them if needed. Issei turned around and marched towards the village with his followers following behind him. It started to get colder, and the snow continued to pour down and ice spread across the ground with each step he took. Henry timidly asked for his name. Henry, excuse me. Thank you so much for saving us, we are forever grateful. Nemu, thank you so much, mister. Both of the girls bowed towards their savior in appreciation. Albedo, and the Vrykul and Valkyrie nodded their heads in appreciation for the girls' gratefulness towards their death god. Issei stopped in his tracks for a brief moment and acknowledged their praises. Issei, it was no problem. He continued to walk forward until Henry decided to ask for his name. Henry, wait, may I please have the name of the man who saved me? Issei stopped in his tracks once again, thinking of his name, that he should be known by. Rias could tell he was thinking about something and decided to speak to him through their mental link. Rias, I think they should know who you are, my love. Issei, my name, huh? Yes, they should all know. Real world. Issei turned around with his cape flowing behind him. He impaled Frostmourne in the ground and rested his hands on the top of the hilt. Albedo, and the others immediately kneeled before him. Issei, you shall remember it well. I am not immortal like yourselves. You will tell every one of my powers and my might. I am a divine being. I have come to the mortal realm to reclaim what is mine. I am the god of death. I am the Lich King. As he said that, his eyes began to glow a brighter shade of blue, and the snow and ice and everything began to expand and the wind began to pick up, showing that what he said was indeed true. The girls couldn't believe what their eyes were seeing. A literal god was standing in front of them, a god of death. After what they just witnessed, they couldn't help believe, and what he was saying was true. Soon all would know the wrath of the Lich King. Meanwhile, back in the village, one of the night was tossed in the air like nothing. This got the attention of the others as well as the captive villagers. All of them turned towards what had happened, only to notice that a massive undead was attacking. The Death Knight had made it to the village, and it was going to make a meat grinder of these knights. The Death Knight swatted away one of the other knight away with his shield and let out a massive roar. All of knights and the villagers became frightened at what they saw. Some of the knights started to back away. Enter one of them started to run away from the undead. The Death Knight, however, was too fast and appeared right in front of the fleeing soldier. He raised his massive sword, swinging it down, cutting the knight in half. The knight's blood splattered all over the place. Some even got on one of the knights that was leaving this attack. He started to whimper in fear. Another one charged forward, swinging his sword at the young dead, trying to kill him. Knight, die! The knight swung his sword down on the undead only for it to completely shatter upon impact. The knight was completely stunned, and in shock of what just happened, the undead turned around and swatted him away with his massive shield, sent again flying all the way to the forest. Spoken noise. Another one tried to run and escape with his life, only for the Death Knight to appear in front of him and cut him down in cold blood. The knight captain that was leading them noticed that the undead was only targeting his men. Captain Lance, it's only killing the men in armor, and it's enjoying it. The knights began to panic, thinking all was lost. Knight 1, God help us all. Knight 2, we're doomed. It was then that the second knight captain screamed for his men to get over here and protect him. His name was Captain Belius. Belius, you idiots, hurry up and take down that monster. He noticed all the blood spattered on his armor, and began to freak out even more. Belius, this can't be happening. I'm too rich to die in a hellhole like this. You men get over here now, be my shield so I can escape. Captain Lons gave him a glare and told him to stand his ground. Captain Lons, damn it, stand your ground, Belius. Don't you dare be a coward! Belius continued to freak out and back away only to step on one of his fallen comrades with his blood splattered all across the ground. He looked over and noticed his fallen comrade and started to freak out even more. The Death Knight immediately took notice of him and made his way over until he was right in front of him. Belius, protect me, I have money, I'll give you 200 gold pieces. No, make that 500 gold. I'll pay a 1,000. It was then that the hand of his fallen comrade reached over and grabbed his ankle. He then looked down to see that the face mask of the knight's helmet was shattered, revealing a bloodied face, and that did it for him. He screamed at the top of his lungs and fainted. The Death Knight immediately impaled him with his massive sword repeatedly until he was dead, all the while with him begging anyone to save him while offering them money. Start at 1:32 minute. Belius, don't just stand there, help me please, save me, money, take it all. Save me. And with one more massive stab through the gut he was dead. As soon as the Death Knight finished his work, he then turned his attention back towards the other knights. Knight 1, no way, I can't do this. Knight 2, screw this. Just before anyone could run away, the captain called up for his men to stand tall and defend themselves to the death. Captain Lons, hold steady. Stay strong, we will stand our ground and defend our brothers. Let's get the archers time to retreat. The rest of you prepare for battle. That gave them the confidence they needed. They readied their swords and prepared their shield for battle. The Death Knight rushed forward. The other soldiers charged at him, and it was nothing but a slaughter. The Death Knight continued batting away his knights with the shield while cutting the others down with his massive sword. The captain haven't seen enough of this, ready to sword and charge forward. What the mass of war! Cry, he charged straight at the undead. Once he was in front of the beast, he ready to sword, but before he could do anything, the Death Knight raised his massive sword, cutting him down, slicing his head off from his shoulders and his blood spewing everywhere all across the ground. The body collapsed to the ground dead, and the Death Knight was about to continue until he was given the order to stop. Issei, enough, Death Knight, you have served me well. The remaining knights and the villagers became confused on where that voice came from. It was then that they noticed it started to snow and became colder, and I started to form on the ground. Then they heard a loud horn being blown in the distance. This was the horn of the Vrykul. It was done that they noticed movement coming out of the forest, and what they saw shocked them as massive blue giant figures emerged from the forest, each of them carrying 2 massive axes. They also saw blue women with wings, some with light wings and some with dark wings, flying in the air. They also saw a black armored individual, a striking beautiful woman with crimson red hair, and then they saw him plotted with the armor of damnation, wielding the powerful rune blade. Frostmourne, the Lich King, had made himself known as he stepped forward. Once they were in front, other remaining knights who were now shaking not just from the cold but from fear, as if they were staring into the eyes of death itself. Issei's eyes glowed an icy mystic blue, and nobody could see his face, just the helm of domination that adorned his head. Several of the villagers gasped. They couldn't believe what they were seeing, and several of the knights literally pissed themselves. Issei, you fools have crossed into the world of the dead itself at hopes of saving your allies and slaughtering all those around you, and have risked life and limb to be here. Allow me to help. Issei raised Frostmourne in the air, and out of the blade came dark energies that spreaded through the corpses of the fallen knights, and let me tell you, what scared the literal shit out of everybody. But what scared them even more was that the fallen knights had risen, becoming undead minions of the Scourge, turning into skeletal soldiers, and thus walking over and joining the ranks of Issei's small but powerful army that stood before everyone. Issei, I am the god of death. I am the Lich King. It is a pleasure to meet all of you. The knights were scared out of their minds, wondering what was going to happen. However, Issei reassured them that the rest of them did not need to die. Issei, do not worry about my forces, they will not harm you. Give your owners my kindness. But know this is the only act of mercy I will give to you and your superiors. Next time you commit such heinous acts in this area, the Scourge will reduce to your lands to rubble, and I will bring death to each and every one of you. Now leave, and make sure you speak my name to everyone. Without being told twice, their remaining knights fled the area and ran away with their tails and between their legs, screaming and running in fear. Issei's mind. Issei sighs, man, acting is a tough gig. Though it is kind of cool pretending to be the Lich King and all, but does get tiring at some point. But still cool nonetheless. Real world. It was then that one of the villagers spoke up, albeit timidly, as he was somewhat frightened by the figures in front of him. It was the village chief that spoke up. Village chief, Pardon me, SS, sir. Issei turned towards his direction, looking him in the eyes, his icy blue frost-like eyes making contact with the village chief's, and he was scared, but he continued to speak. Village chief, why did you come here? Issei, I could not stand by and watch innocent people be murdered. Call it a moral obligation. Some of the villagers seemed to be a little more frightened, but Issei raised his hand, ushering them to be silent. Issei, be at ease. This village is now under the protection of the Scourge. You no longer need to be scared. Rest assured, my undead forces will do you no harm. Issei marched forward, standing right in front of the group of villagers. His dark towering presence, along with his cape flowing in the wind, made him appear to be a dark lord of the undead, of which he was some. Of the villagers gasped. One of his Valkyrie came down right beside him and told the villagers to be grateful. Valkyrie, you fools should be grateful. Kneel in the presence before the Lich King, the true god of death and the one true ruler of this world. More the villagers became frightened at the sight of this towering woman with wings and blue skin and armor. Issei raised his hand and told his Valkyrie battle maiden to stand down. Issei, enough, I will deal with this. The Valkyrie bowed her head towards her master. Valkyrie, apologies, my lord. She went back to join the others, and Issei continued to look at the group and sighs to himself. Issei sighs. I don't do this kind of work for free, though I expect to be compensated for my efforts. All the villagers started to murmur in life amongst themselves, then they smiled and were grateful. Issei looked towards Rias, and they both conversed with one another through their mental link. Issei and Rias's minds. Issei, as I thought, the villagers don't question our intentions as long as they think we're doing this for financial gain. Rias, it appears so. They would react negatively if they saw your face through the helm of domination. It's too bad we didn't think of anything else before stepping into the situation. Issei, true, it's a pain, but I really don't want to, but we probably have to use a spell to keep those girls quiet. Rias, let's not wipe their memories. I believe they are trustworthy. Issei, yeah, you're probably right. But right now I say we should get some information about this world that we're in. Perhaps they have a map of the surrounding countries. Rias, it doesn't hurt to ask. Real world. Issei, Rias, and Albedo would speak to the villagers about the surrounding areas. Meanwhile, Issei ordered his forces to surround the village in a protective manner, guarding it in case of any more uninspected guests, and the villagers were beyond grateful for their assistance. The undead guarding the village while the Vrykul were patrol in the area, and the Valkyrie were flying overhead, keeping an eye out from the skies. Sisters Fauna and Scotty the Ruthless were put in charge of the defense of the village. Issei was with the village chief in his house, looking over a map of the surrounding nations and getting a layout of the land. Issei's mind. Issei, I requested money from the village so as not to arouse any suspicion, but information was what I was truly after. We are unfamiliar with this new world and need to learn all we can about the area. Failing to educate myself only make me weak to any enemies. The village chief and his wife believed in my story about me being a ruler of a hidden nation of the undead, and was quite knowledgeable about magic but knew nothing about the world around him. They were eager to educate me about this village and the surrounding areas. I wondered though what kind of people use magic in this world that these peasants were so easily. Trust me, sure, I'm grateful and glad, but it still intrigues me. Even though they can't see my face because the helmet domination is on my head, they still trust me nonetheless. Just because I claim to be a powerful ruler wields both frost and the powers of necromancy. Maybe in the future I can get some members from the cult of the damned to come here. Anyway, sadly I quickly learned that all of my money from both Yggdrasil and World of Warcraft currency was useless here. Of course the gold itself has some value, but still it could be dangerous to flush the coins around. After that I asked about the surrounding territories. Apparently there are 3 realms which compose of the 3 most powerful nations on the continent, meaning the 3 greatest superpowers. Apparently the Great Tune of Nazarick and thus Icecrown and this village known as Karn are part of the Riastei's kingdom border. On the other side of the said border is the domain adjacent to the great mountain range that runs north and south the Baharuth Empire. The 2 countries are on bad terms, to say the least. They've hated each other for years, and they often battle on the open plans between them near the capital city of Irantal. And of course there is one final country, the slain Theocracy, which is located to the south of both provinces. The village chief assumed that the Baharuth Empire was responsible for the attack based on the knights' armor and the crest on their shields. However, it is without a doubt that the slain Theocracy stages this entire event to maintain hostilities between the 2 countries. If I had thought to take a night for questioning, we would have found out, but I have no doubts it was them. And thus it is clear that they are an enemy to the Frozen Throne, and that in time both that the Theocracy and the Scourge will go to war, and it is a war that I intend to win. Real world. After they were finished discussion the main topics, the village chief noticed that the Lich King seemed to be distracted and asked if everything was all right. Village chief, my lord, is everything all right? Is there something bothering you? Rias and Albedo also knows that he was lost and thought Rias came over and put a hand on his shoulder wondering if he was okay. Rias, is everything all right, my love? Issei, huh? Oh. No, everything's fine. Is there anything else of importance that I should know about this region? The village chief then pointed towards a section of the map. Village chief, let's see the closest city to our villages, the capital Irantal. Goblins, orcs, and ogres inhabit the area, but based on your strength and the size of your forces you should be safe on the road. Also the adventurers hunt on that land and do a good job of keeping those bastards' populations in check. Issei then became intrigued when he heard that orcs were in this world too, but something told him that these orcs were totally different compared to the ones under his command. You'll have to remember to inform Sorfang and his son about this, but we really caught his attention were the adventurers that were mentioned. Issei, adventurers you say? The village chief nodded his head and explained. Village chief, they're mercenaries who deal with monsters in exchange for payment. If you're interested in hiring some of them, there's a guild in Irantal where you can request their services. Issei became even more intrigued. Issei, an adventurers guild, and just how big of a city is Irantal? Village chief, I'm afraid I'm not sure, my lord, but it is definitely larger than our village. Issei, I suspected that. Issei began to think to himself. Issei's mind. Issei, if I want to make a small base for myself, then I have to become an adventurer in the capital so I can gather more information. Real world. After the discussions were done, the villagers buried their dead and marked them with graves and had a funeral for their lost friends and family that were killed. Issei, Rias, Albedo, and Sister Svalna were standing off to the side, letting them have their moment to themselves. Issei saw both Enri and Nimu crying over one of the graves. Even though he was only partially undead, the living part of him still felt sorry for them. Having lost loved ones he knows all too well is the feeling of loss. Issei made his way back toward the village with his companions by your side. Evening started to arrive and the sun was starting to set. The villagers were banding together, repairing the damage done to their village, someone clearing out the rubble, and others were tending to the fields. Issei's mind. Issei, thanks to my actions, the story of how the Lich King and the Scourge who saved Karn village will spread the countryside. My reputation should grow quickly. At any time the Scourge will fully reveal itself. Icecrown will rise to the surface and a new superpower will be born. But right now I shouldn't kill any more humans unless necessary, and if that time arises, more soldiers will be needed to add to the ranks of the Scourge. Also, a man with a reputation needs a cause, one that will allow me to win the support of one of the countries. Sighs, I'm exhausted. Real world. Issei, today's mission was a great success. Rias, indeed it was, my love. Issei, we should have back home to Icecrown. Albedo, right away, my lord. Sister Svalna, as you wish, my lord. As they were discussing, a villager came by carrying a wooden beam. Passing them, he nodded his head and waved to them. Villager, hey there. Issei and Rias noticed how Albedo and Svalna were looking at the human villagers. Issei, you two seem to dislike humans. Albedo, what's to like about them, my lord? Svalna, agreed, they are weak and pathetic, just tiny insects that exist to be crushed under the feet of the Scourge. Rias spoke up next. Rias, listen, both of you, I want you to show them respect. Act if you need to, but I demand that you treat the humans with respect. Issei backed her up and spoke next. Issei, agreed, even though you are right in the sense this village is under the protection of the Scourge, under the protection of myself, and thus I demand that you treat the humans with kindness. Albedo and Svalna reluctantly agreed and nodded their heads. Svalna, as you wish, my lord. Albedo, yes, my lord. Issei nodded his head in agreement, and so did Rias. Issei and Rias's minds. Issei, you know it feels kind of happy critical to ask that of them when we don't feel for them either. Rias, true. But some part of me just wants to have some sort of kind relationship with them. I guess it keeps me connected to my own life. Issei, same here. I really do miss everybody. Rias, I do too. Issei, I do too. Real world. It was then that Issei and Rias noticed the commotion amongst the villagers and they decided to go check on what was going on. Issei, and the problems keep stacking. They made the way over to the villagers. Villager, what are we going to do, chief? Village chief, I am afraid I don't have a plan. Rias, everything all right. Issei, indeed, is there something wrong here, village chief? Village chief, oh my lord and lady, thank goodness. I have some news. It was then that several Valkyrie landed and bowed before their master. Valkyrie 1. My lord, if there are some more soldiers approaching. We count around 50 all on horseback. Issei, is that so? Valkyrie 2. Yes, my lord, what are your orders? Issei turned towards the village chief and told them he could handle this. Issei, do not worry, I will handle this situation. Me and my forces will protect you in case of something weird to go wrong. Issei then turned towards his undead forces and issued out his orders. Issei, Scotty, you and the other Frostmourne will be at the front along with the undead forces. Sister Sylvanas, you and the other Valkyrie will provide aerial cover around the village. Albedo, you will stay here with myself and Queen Rias and act as our bodyguard. But should things get interesting, I will enter the battle myself. Am I understood? Scourge forces, yes, my lord. All hail the Lich King. Issei then turned towards the village chief and told him what to do. Issei, Chief, I want you to get yourself and the other surviving villagers around your house. When you're done, come meet me at the town square. The villagers became glad that the undead forces were here to protect them, and they were eager to carry out the Lich King's orders. Village chief, yes, of course, your majesty. Once everybody was in precision with the Vrykul and the undead outing front along with the Valkyrie hovering overhead, Issei Rias along with Albedo Sylvanas, and the village chief waited in the town square. It was then that they heard the noise of horses off in the distance galloping fast ahead. The Scourge forces rated themselves for battle just in case the villagers were hiding in the main hut. It was then that they saw the galloping horses with the soldiers on them approaching. Once they saw the village of Bed, the soldiers couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Massive blue giants along with undead forces and giant blue women with wings hovering over the leader ordered his soldiers to halt. And although horses stopped in front of the chief warrior and general of the group of soldiers stood across from the Scourge forces. Gazef Stronov stared at the undead forces that lay before him. It was then that his second-in-command rode up, represented him, and asked what was going on. Vice Chief, sir, what are your orders? Gazef, wait here. I will approach alone and see what is going on. The vice chief nodded his head, albeit hesitatively. Gazef rode his horse up towards the village. Once he was in front, he introduced himself. Gazef, I am the chief royal warrior from the Riastei's kingdom. Gazef Stronov, the king has ordered me to hunt down the knights that had been attacking the surrounding villages. Your people are safe now. We will do all we can to protect you. But first, it would seem that you are in a bit of trouble, are you not? If so, then we will take care of these undead forces. Many of the Scourge forces became enraged at this human's comment about them, but Issei raised his hand, issuing them to hold. The village chief stepped forward, introducing himself, and telling him that everything was all right. Village chief, thank you, General Gazef, we appreciate your help. But I assure you these forces here are not a threat. Gazef, are you the chief this village? Who is this armored man standing beside you? He, the leader of these undead forces along with these giants. Issei spoke up, though when he did his voice intimidated Gazef just a little bit, but he stood strong. Issei, there is no need to worry about that now. It is a pleasure to make your appointments, General. I am the Lich King, the ruler of Icecrown Citadel, and the one true lord and master of the Scourge. Rest assured, General, if we are not here to harm these people, we actually stumbled upon this and witnessed the knights attacking, so we stepped in order to protect these people. Gazef, what? Gazef dismounted from his horse and stood in front of the Lich King, and bowed his head. Gazef, these people would have been lost without you. I am grateful, your majesty. Rias then came over and introduced herself. Rias, it's a pleasure to meet you, General. I am Rias Gremory, one of the queens of the Lich King and of Icecrown Citadel. Gazef was struck in awe by her beauty. He quickly composed self and offered his greetings. Gazef, the pleasure is mine, my lady. It was then that both one of the soldiers and a female Frostmourne sorceress came over to both Issei and Gazef. The first to speak was the soldier. Royal soldier, General, we spotted a large army of unknown origin, and they're surrounding the village even as we speak. The Frostmourne woman stepped forward and bowed towards her king, and gave a similar report. The woman's name was Svala. Svala, my lord, these our scouts have reported similar sightings, and there are also a large number of magic casters amongst this group. Just say the word and we will destroy them in the name of the Scourge. Issei looked out towards the distance. This was the chance that they have been waiting for. Even though this might be a small-scale skirmish, it would show the world of the Scourge it would be emerging in. It would soon be this world's greatest superpower, and Issei's reputation would grow exponentially. Soon this world would know that the wrath of the Lich King and the might of the Scourge will soon be felt across the world. In a massive church we see a group of priests addressing a man that was kneeling in front of them. Head Priest 1, Nigen Grid Luwin as captain of the sunlit scripture of the 6 great gods you are called upon to serve. Head priest 2, you will go to the Riestai's kingdom, locate Gazef Stranov and eliminate him. The man now identified as Nigen nodded his head. One of the head priests reached into their robes and pulled out a crystal-shaped object and handed it to Nigen. Head priest 1, this treasure contains a miracle of the gods, use it only if necessary. Nigen nodded his head towards the priest and bowed his head. He quickly got up and made his leave. He made his way over towards his unit and addressed them. Nigen, attention, all units, our prey has entered the cage. Devote yourselves to the gods and carry out their will. We now cut back to the present. Nigen and his forces surrounded the village. The Scourge forces were hiding, waiting to reveal themselves. Issei and Rias along with General Gazef were inside the main building in the village, looking at the windows at the forces that lay before them. Gazef, there they are. Soldier, it looks like they've surrounded us in equal intervals. Issei turned his head towards Gazef and asked if he had any idea who these people were. Issei, do you have some idea of who they might be? Gazef, only the slain Theocracy could send out this many magic casters at once, and the part of a special ops unit directly under the head priest. It must be one of the 6 scriptures, as he said that several magic casters could be seen wearing robes and armor accompanied by large metallic angel-like figures. Issei saw this and became surprised. He remembers those angel-like figures from Yggdrasil, however he knew for a fact they were no match for his Valkyrie. In fact, when the battle starts you'll have his undead forces take on the Theocracy troops on the ground and the Valkyrie take on the angels on the sky with his forces. This fight wouldn't last too long, but for the meantime it's probably best if he stays out of this fight for as long as he can. Issei, then the men who attacked the village earlier were indeed Gazef, yes, there were no doubt Theocracy soldiers. Looks like they dressed in imperial armor to throw us off. Issei, then it's as I suspected. Does this village hold some significant value by any chance? Gazef, if you don't know why they are attacking, then I'm assuming they're not after you or your forces, which means only one thing. Issei, indeed it would appear that you are quite despised among the Theocracy chief warrior. Gazef, yes, well, lucky me. To think even the slain Theocracy wants me dead. The both them continue to look out and notice more troops gathering on the outskirts of the village. Issei thought to himself for a moment. Issei's mind, Issei, I knew those creatures look like archangel flames. Why is a monster from Yggdrasil here? I wonder if there are monsters from that game here. It makes me wonder if monsters and other beings from World of Warcraft are here as well. Real world. Rias looked over and noticed that Issei was in deep thought. She used her telepathic link with Issei to find out what he was thinking about. Issei and Rias's mains. Rias, I can tell you looking at those angel-like beings out there. Let me guess, they're from one of the games you played. Issei, yep, those are archangel flames from Yggdrasil. It also makes me wonder if there are other beings from World of Warcraft here. If there are, my guess is there are creatures from Northrend here as well. Rias, if there are, the nice, just we'd be extra careful for future plans. Issei agreed. Real world. Issei and Rias focused back on the task at hand. Gazef looked over towards Issei and Rias and began to speak. Gazef, Lich King, Lady Rias. I know that you two are royalty, and I'm sorry to ask this, but I would like to hire you and your forces. Name your price and I'll make sure that you will get it. You have my word. Rias stepped forward and spoke up for the both of them. Rias, apologies, General, but I'm afraid we have to decline. Gazef understood and nodded his head, saying no more. Gazef, very well, my lady. Then please take care and thank you again for all your help. This village owes the both of you gratitude, as do I. He bowed to the both of them. Once he was done, he reached out his hand towards Issei, with him returning the handshake all the same, although Albedo and Svalna didn't like that the human put their hands on their master. However, just before they were about to do anything, Rias raised her hand, a motion for them to stand down, which they quickly did and nodded their heads. Gazef, I am grateful, which is why I hesitate to ask. I know this is a selfish request, but please grant these people your protection one more time. My lord, I have nothing to offer you now, but please, I beg you, please. Just as he was about to get down on money and bowed, Issei reached over with his hand and stopped him. Gazef looked up towards the Lich King and he spoke. Issei, there is no need for you to go that far. Gazef, I understand, and I will be sure to protect this village. The forces of the Scourge will honor their word and protect everyone here to their dying breath. Literally. Gazef couldn't tell, but Issei was smirking underneath the helm of domination, and for some reason Gazef let out a smirk of his own, and the two of them shared a small chuckle. Issei, As I said, I will protect the villagers. I will even put the name of the Lich King on the line. This greatly surprised Albedo and Sylvanas, but Rias gave a small smile, realizing that there was truth behind her lover's words. Once again he proves to her that he will go above and beyond to protect the innocent. Even though his forces are undead, he will use them to protect the living all the same and destroy all those who stand in his way. Gazef, then I will have nothing to worry about. Indeed, I will focus on the task before me. Issei held out his hand and gave a small-looking statue to Gazef. Issei, take this, I insist. Gazef gasps, you're giving me a gift, I greatly accept it. He took the small statue out of his hands and put it away in his pocket. Gazef, thanks. Issei, good luck and give those bastards hell. Gazef gave him a big smirk and nodded his head. Gazef, now that I can do. And with that he took his leave and made his way towards his troops, who they themselves were already preparing for battle. All of them were already mounted on their horses, and he quickly got on his as well. He gave the signal, him and all of his soldiers rode off to face the enemy on horseback. Issei, Rias, Albedo, and Sylvanas all stood together watching as the human troops rode off to face their enemies. Issei sighs. When I first met the humans here, I saw them as no more than you do insects. But the more I speak with them, the more fonder I grow of them. Lucky child among helpless animals. Sylvanas stepped forward and asked, Sylvanas, is that the reason you are willing to promise the honor of your glorious name to his request, my lord? Issei. Perhaps. Albedo. He should be grateful that our glorious master would even do something as gracious as that. Rias. It just goes to show that our lord and master is truly a man of honor. Albedo and Sylvanas nodded their heads in agreement. It was then that the village chief came over and asked what was going on. Village chief, your majesty. Those marauders are still out there. Why is the chief warrior leaving? Issei. Because he was their true target all along, not this village. Village chief. Then should we just stay here and wait for him to deal with those brigands? Rias. That would be unwise. Once the chief warrior and his men disrupt their lines, we will make our escape. Issei. Indeed, he will cause as much commotion as he can. The rest of the people can escape. Village chief, my forces will help keep you and the others safe. You have my word. The village chief and his wife both let out a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, back with Gazef and his men, they continue to ride as fast as they can towards the enemy. Gazef quickly issued out orders towards his men. Gazef will attack them head on, break through the soldiers and lead the enemy away from the villagers. After that, continue to retreat. Timing is critical here. Soldiers. Understood, sir. Gazef, now let's pay the ground with our god-loving guts. All the soldiers let out a fierce war cry as they charged straight towards the enemy. Gazef ready to bow, an arrow taking aim and firing at the nearest magic caster. The arrow flew to the air at breakneck speed. However, just as it was about to reach its target, a magical barrier appeared right in front of the magic caster, blocking the arrow and destroying it. Seeing his bow was useless, he quickly tossed aside and drew his sword. Gazef let out a fierce war cry of his own, a magic caster ready to spell, causing his horse to toss him off onto the ground, but he quickly recovered. A soldier quickly rode up beside him and offered out a hand. Soldier, here, sir. However, just as he was about to reach up and grab his hand, he quickly noticed one of the archangels coming after him. He quickly grabbed his sword and slashed at the holy monster. However, he was struggling to cut his way through the beast. Just as it looked like his sword was about to come back out, he lets out another fierce war cry and pushes with all of his might, slashing his way clean through the monster. However, it survived and managed to get back up. Gazef, tough aren't you? The angel-like monster maneuvered into position and manifested a light sword, preparing to strike. However, Gazef prepared a special skill known as the martial art. Gazef, martial art focus battle aura. Gazef swung his sword, delivering a powerful blow, finally killing the monster. As it disappeared, Gazef then immediately got up and stood his ground. Off in the distance he saw several magic casters and immediately summoned a large group of more angels. He started to get frustrated. Gazef, magic really pisses me off. He immediately thought to himself that everything was going according to plan. Gazef, alright, everything's all going according to plan. It's up to you now, your majesty, the Lich King. Gazef braced himself for the battle ahead. Only then did he hear the sound of his soldiers letting out a ferocious war cry, turning around on their horses, charging straight towards the enemy. Soldier 1, I'm staying by Gazef's side. Soldier 2, we're the ones who will protect this country. All of the soldiers drew their swords and raised them in the air, letting out a ferocious war cry. As this was happening, Gazef couldn't believe what his troops were doing. Gazef, I told you to retreat. You're all damn fools. But you're fools I'm proud to fight beside. It was then that the magic casters noticed that they were being attacked from behind. They quickly changed their position and ordered their summoned monsters to attack the incoming troops. The angel-like monsters charged straight into their lines, causing several of the soldiers to fall out their horses and be immediately impaled by light sword. The monsters started to surround the soldiers. Gazef immediately noticed this. He watched his soldiers fight bravely against overwhelming odds. The troops began fighting the angel-like monsters with everything they had, but there was just too many of them, and they were starting to get overrun. Gazef, damn. There's just too many of them, they'll completely overtake us. Gazef continued to look across the battlefield. He knows the enemy leader in the background with his personal monster regarding him. He thought to himself, they could take out the enemy commander, then they could turn the tide of the battle in their favor. Gazef, but if we take out their commenter, it's all over. Gazef charged straight through the battlefield, taking out several angel monsters along the way, saving several of his men. Gazef, come on! He shouted towards his men, encouraging them to push forward. Another monster immediately flew into his path, blocking his way. Gazef, you're in my way! Several more monsters joined up and were about to attack, but he immediately activated one of his martial arts skills, slicing his sword through the enemy, letting out a powerful slash strike, destroying multiple enemies at once. Gazef, martial arts six-fold slash of light. Many of his soldiers were inspired by his bravery, taking out multiple enemies at once. More of the monsters immediately noticed Gazef and charged straight towards him with their light swords drawn. Gazef, upon noticing this, immediately activated another martial arts skill. He jumped into the air, spinning rapidly, taking out multiple enemies at once, slicing them in half. Gazef, martial art instant counter. His soldiers were overjoyed to have him as their general, and they started to gain more confidence as the battle dragged on. Soldier 1, ya see that? Soldier 2, hell yeah, we can win this fight. Gazef looked around with satisfaction. Spoke a noise. It was then that the enemy leader spoke up to Gazef, taunting him. Nigen, impressive. Mastering that many skills isn't easy. Sadly, it won't save you. Summon another set of angels. Nigen motioned for his followers to summon more angels, and they immediately did so without question. Magic circles appeared, and out came more angel-like monsters wielding light swords. Nigen, focus all your magical attacks on the chief warrior. Gazef's troops noticed that the enemy summoned more reinforcements, and they inwardly started to panic. Gazef remained calm and stoic, but he knows that they were outmatched. Gazef, we're in trouble. Meanwhile, back in the village, everyone was hauled up inside the main hut. Some of them were starting to get scared. Enri and Ninu were inside the hut as well. Enri was doing her best to keep her sister calm. She hugged her and stroked the back of her head, trying to do everything she can to make her feel safe. Ninu, I'm scared. She started to cry on her sister's chest. Enri told her that everything was going to be all right. Enri, it's all right, trust me, I know that the Lich King and his Scourge forces will help us turn the tide and save us all. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, many of the Riastai's kingdom soldiers were scattered across the battlefield, either dead or wounded. Gazef himself was not doing much better. His blood was dripping from almost everywhere across his body, but he was still standing strong, willing to give his life here if need be to protect the people of this village. Even if he were to die, he knows that the Lich King and the Scourge will protect them. The magic casters started firing more spells at Gazef, striking dead on, taking chunks of his armor off, and he was bleeding more and more as the battle dragged on. He immediately started to cough up a large amount of blood. He was panting and his hands were shaking, but still he kept his head held high and stood strong. He gripped the hilt of his sword tighter and held it in the air, still willing to show that he was in this fight. He looked above him, noticing dozens of angel-like monsters hovering above him with light swords and spears drawn. Several then started to charge at him, swinging the swords at him, but he blocked every incoming strike that he tried, but several immense to pierce his defenses and strike him. One of them snuck up behind it and sliced his back. He quickly turned around, slicing the angel monster, and half killing it, and then another, but there are still just too many of them, until one of them immediately snuck up from behind him and stabbed him through the side of his ribs. The angel monster retracted his weapon and blood spewed out from his wounds, with him collapsing on the ground. As a result, the monster started to surround him. Nigen, as a result, continued to watch this with a devilish smile. He ordered his mages to command their summoned monsters to finish the job. Nigen, finish him off, but don't leave it to chance. Attack him with all of them to ensure his fate. The mages gave the signal for the monsters to start to close in on Gazef, but he immediately started a growling. He quickly grabbed a hold of his sword and used the last bit of his strength to get up. Gazef not through yet. He let out his most ferocious war cry and readied himself for combat. Gazef, I am the chief warrior. My heart and soul belong to Rias. I'll gladly die 1,000 times before I let the likes of you destroy the peace of these lands. Nigen and his followers just started to chuckle amongst themselves, and then he spoke. Nigen, oh yes, you will die and you'll only have yourself to blame. Face it, Gazef Stronov, there's nothing you can do to stop the slain Theocracy. Once we're through with you, we'll massacre the villagers. Enough with your futile resistance already. Why don't you just lay down like a good little dog? As an act of mercy, I'll make sure your death is painless. As soon as he spoke those words, Gazef started to laugh out loud. This confused the Theocracy soldiers as well as Nigen. He decided to ask what was so funny. Nigen, what the hell are you laughing about? Is there something amusing about this whole situation? Gazef looked up towards Nigen with a huge smile on his face, and told him he had no idea what he was about to face. Soon he would know the wrath of this world's true master. Soon he would know the wrath of the god of death. Gazef, yeah, you and your little army there, you have no idea what you are about to face. Once the man, no, once the deity, and his followers in the village come for you, it will be nothing but an absolute slaughter. Your deaths are already sealed. Soon you will know. No? As a matter of fact, the whole slain Theocracy will know the true might of the Scourge. This immediately spread confusion amongst the ranks of the Theocracy soldiers. What was he talking about? What was the Scourge he was referring to? Nigen, however, wasn't buying this. With a cocky attitude and grin, he called Gazef's tale a bluff. Nigen, ha ha ha. Are you trying to bluff me? Kill him, angels, make sure he suffers. Gazef just growls in irritation. However, just before the angels could attack, a voice appears in the bag of his mind. That voice belonged to none other than the Lich King. Issei, you have done well. It looks like it's time for us to switch. The Scourge will take it from here. The next thing that happened shocked Gazef. One moment he was on the battlefield preparing to face death. The next thing that happened, he was right in the middle of the main building in the village, surrounded by the villagers and whatever remained of his men that were wounded. He looked around in confusion, wondering what just happened. The villagers were equally taken aback, wondering what just happened. Some of them went over to help out the wounded soldiers, while the village chief went over to Gazef. Gazef, huh? Where am I? What just happened? Village chief. This is the village storage house. Chief warrior, His Majesty the Lich King set up a magical barrier to keep everybody safe. He also left several of those, I think they were called Valkyrie, to guard the village. Gazef looked around, wondering where he was. Unfortunately, he saw no sign of him. Gazef, is he here? Village chief. He was, but only for a moment, then he just vanished, and you and the rest of your men appeared in his place. Gazef was still in disbelief of how he disappeared from the battlefield right into the storage house, and then he suddenly remembered something, the gift he was given from the king. He immediately opened up his side pouch and pulled out the small statue he was given. Then it dawned on him the Lich King planned this from the very beginning. Small statue started to disappear in his hand. A huge smile dawned on his face. Gazef, I'll be damned. It was then that the door to the storage house opened up and a Valkyrie with dark black wings came in. Everyone's attention was immediately drawn to her, somewhere a little intimidated by her size, seeing that she was much taller than an average human. Her dark black hair and blue skin stood out as well. She made her way over Gazef. Upon seeing this, he immediately did his best to strike himself to the best of his abilities. Even though he was gravely injured, he still stood with respect towards the towering woman. Upon reaching him, she immediately spoke to him. Valkyrie, it seems that you have survived the first round. Gazef Stronov. I am a Valkyrie in service to the god of death and the one true ruler of the Scourge. Gazef nodded in a form respect towards the towering woman. Gazef, it's a pleasure to meet you, ma'am. Where has His Majesty gone? Valkyrie, my master and the rest of the Scourge forces accompanying him have taken your place on the battlefield. Soon those mortal fools will regret ever coming. Gazef immediately nodded his head in agreement. Then the weight of exhaustion finally hit him and started to fall to the ground, but he was immediately caught. The village chief who gently set him down. The Valkyrie turned around and made her way out of the storage house, joined her fellow battle maidens in the sky. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, everything had completely changed. The sky was now much dark. Thunder and lightning started to spread across the sky. The temperature drastically dropped, and snow poured endlessly. Before Theocracy stood a massive army unlike anything they have ever seen before. Massive blue giant warriors, both a male and female, accompanying by blue-skinned women with wings of both light and dark havering above the undead army. Also accompanying the massive warriors were undead soldiers that the Death Knight killed earlier that day. They have been risen into undead soldiers adorn the ranks of the Scourge. At the very front stood Rias in her crimson golden armor with her beautiful crimson hair flowing through the wind. On her left was a warrior clad in black with black wings coming out of her back. Albedo stood by her queen's side ready to defend her. On Rias's right side stood one of the mass of blue women with light wings and blonde hair. She had a massive spear in her right hand impelled into the ground. Nigen and his men were taken aback by the massive army that stood before them. Then they heard massive footsteps approaching the very front of the everything. One of the massive blue giants stepped to either side and bowed before their master. The massive blue women with wings of both light and dark floated down to the ground and bowed before their master. Albedo and Sister Svalna were still standing, but they bowed their heads towards their mouth. Rias began to smile at the approach of her. Once the being came into full view of the Theocracy soldiers and Nigen, he just barely widened his eyes but still kept a calm demeanor. Once the masked being was at the very front, he stopped. His blue cape flowed through the air. His aura screamed death itself. His icy blue eyes stared into the very souls of the Theocracy soldiers, who started to shake and tremble. The massive ruined blade he carried in his right hand let out an icy aura of death. The figure was clad in from head to toe covered in skulls, and the helmet he wore upon his head almost resembled that of some kind of a crown. You couldn't even see his face, just the icy blue eyes that appeared from the eye holes of the helm of domination. There stood Issei, aka the Lich King, in his full glory. Undead minions, the Frostmourne and the Valkyrie immediately got to their feet. The Valkyrie to the skies, the undead warriors ready their weapons, and the Frostmourne were eager for battle, ready to slaughter all that stood before them. Nigen still remained stoic, and decided to ask who this being that stood before him was. Nigen, and Justin, who the hell are you? Nigen appeared to be calm on the outside, but on the inside he was pissing himself. A small drop of sweat could be seen from the top of his forehead, and his hands were barely shaking. He was doing his best to keep calm, but deep down inside he knew he was staring at death itself. Issei meanwhile just stood still, not saying a word, until after a few minutes he decided to speak, and his voice scared the living hell out of everybody there. Issei, kill them all! For the Scourge! He raised Frostmourne, pointing it at the enemy soldiers, and with a loud ferocious war cry Scotty the Ruthless charged forward with his fellow Vrykul, leading warriors, hunters, battle maidens, and sorceresses into battle. The undead soldiers followed right behind them, charging straight at the enemy. Issei turned towards Svalna and nodded his head with her nodding in return. She then spread her wings, taken to the sky, and motioned for her fellow Valkyrie to follow her into battle. The armies of the Scourge charged forward, letting out their own ferocious war cry. The soldiers of the slain Theocracy stood there for a moment frozen in fear until Nigen ordered his soldiers to attack. Nigen, don't just stand there, you idiots! Send the angels to attack. The rest of you focus your magic power on those blue giants. Kill them all in the name of the 6 great gods. The Theocracy soldiers did as they were told. They sent in their angels to attack, while the rest of them focused their magic power and launched their attacks. Rias, seeing this from the sideline, decided help out their forces. She immediately began to let out her crimson aura, concentrating it. Then she cast a spell, creating a barrier around their forces. Once that the Theocracy soldiers launched their magical attacks, they did nothing but bounce off the barrier that Rias put in place. Issei decided that it was his time and rushed forward to join his soldiers in battles. Albedo spread her wings to join her master in battle. Rias did the same, letting out her crimson aura and prepared the power of destruction in her palms. Once the angel monsters reached the front lines, and so did the armies of the Scourge. What followed in suit was nothing but a bloodbath. To say it was a one-sided fight would be the understatement. The Valkyrie made quick work of the angel monsters in the air, while the Frostmourne and the undead soldiers attacked the Theocracy's front lines, slaughtering all that they came across. Issei meanwhile killed there, stood in his way. He was honestly surprised that he was capable of killing. Normally in his previous life, he would never kill his enemies, just beat them to a bloody pulp, but here things were different. It was truly killed or be killed. The soldiers of the Theocracy were completely outmatched and terrified by the monster that stood before the Lich King. Slaughtered all who came across him, dreading their souls into his blade, or they would be damned for all of eternity. Nigen was starting to lose his confidence. What he saw before him was nothing short of hell itself. His forces were completely routed. The Frostmourne were tearing the enemy to shreds, while the Valkyrie were finishing off the last of the angel monsters. The skeleton soldiers were taking out the stragglers. Some of the Valkyrie came down and started resurrecting the fallen Theocracy soldiers, turning them into undead, and thus joining the ranks of the Scourge. The Theocracy soldiers did as they were told. They sent in their angels to attack while the rest of them focused their magic power and launched their attacks. Rias, seeing this from the sideline, decided help out their forces. She immediately began to. Nigen saw all of this and began to freak out. Nigen, that's not possible. He then began to remember what Gazef said to him, recalling his words inside of his mind telling him that when the man and his army in the village comes for you it will be a massacre, and indeed it truly was. But then something clicked inside of his mind. He remembered the gift he received from the priests. He then let out a smirk. He then shouted at the top of his lungs for all of his remaining forces together behind him. Nigen, all remaining forces retreat to my position. This battle isn't over yet. We'll summon the highest level angel. The last remaining Theocracy soldiers retreated to Nigen's position. Issei and Rias and their forces stopped their attack, wondering what was going on. Issei looked closely at what Nigen was holding, and then it clicked in his mind. Issei, is that? Based on how it glows, it's a sealing crystal that can hold any magic other than top-tier spells, and it's capable of summoning a high-level monster. Let's see what they have in store for the Scourge. Real world. Rias, what's going on, my love? Issei, just wait, Albedo. Svalna, I believe your skills may be required for this situation. Both. Understood, my lord. The both of them immediately took a defensive position in front of their lord and master, and their queen, preparing to protect them, and give the lives if necessary for the death god. Nigen began to grin to himself like a madman and shouted at the top of his lungs that Issei was finished. Nigen, behold the shining form of the highest of angels, dominion authority. The crystal began to glow in his palm, then started to break, unsealing the being that was trapped inside. Once the light died down, it revealed a massive angel-like monster with a golden scepter and several pairs of wings. The Theocracy soldiers began to cheer in unison, thinking that they were saved and that their salvation had come. Issei, meanwhile, just stared up at the angel and couldn't believe what they had summoned. Issei, wait, you're telling me that this is your strongest trump card? Nigen, for his part, was still smiling like a madman, thinking that their victory was sealed, and answered his question. Nigen, that's right, I honestly didn't think I have to call on it, but you have proven worthy of its divine greatness. Issei face palmed against his helmet. Issei, I'm at a complete loss for words. Nigen, ha ha ha. Regretting your folly, I wouldn't blame if you were. Just before you die, you might as well tell me your name. Issei just let out a disappointed sigh. This didn't go unnoticed by Nigen. Issei sighs, pathetic. Nigen became shocked at what he just said. Nigen, what? Issei, and here I was thinking that you were actually going to summon something worthy of the god of death that stands before you, but this is nothing but child's play. Nigen was now freaking out at what he just said. Did he just call himself a god of death? From what he has seen so far, something deep down in his gut told him that this armored figure was not lying, and he started to freak out more. Nigen, what? What was that? You can't be serious. No, there's no way you're lying. You can't be a god of death. You just can't be. You're lying. Mankind can't compete with this angel's divine might. I will show you. Nigen turned towards his summoned monster and ordered him to take down his adversary that stood before him. Nigen, smite him with your divine power. The angel-like monster prepared to attack while Nigen let out a crazed smile, thinking that the Lich King's claim to him being a death god was little more than a bluff. Nigen, dominion authority is the holy product of 7th-tier magic. Nothing can survive it. Now receive the god's judgment, and repent. The monster launched his attack and hit the Lich King dead on. All of the Scourge forces were shocked at what just happened. Rias, above all, couldn't believe when she just saw Nigen, and his soldiers smiled and triumphed, thinking that they had won. However, they would soon know the error of their ways. They started to hear dark laughter coming from where Issei was and saw that the attack had no effect, which shocked them beyond belief, leaving Nigen with his eyes widen and his mouth completely wide open. Issei, so this is how it feels to take damage. This is pain. Rias started to growl lowly. This didn't go unnoticed. Issei, he turned around only to notice that her crimson aura completely covered her. She let out a scream of pure anger and hatred, and her crimson aura spread out, just integrating everything that came into contact with it. The forces of the Scourge immediately backed away, knowing that their queen was beyond pissed. They shuddered in fear. Out of all of their queens, Rias was by far the scariest and most feared, but above all, she was the most powerful, on power with even the Lich King himself. Rias, how dare you? How dare you? hhhhhwwwwwwwdddarreyyyyyyyou. Nigen was beyond scared, screaming like a little girl, and so were his soldiers. Rias, you dare hurt my love, the man who saved me from an eternal life of torment, who gave up his life for everything, giving up his humanity to become who he is today, risking his life over and over and over again, the one who can truly bring balance to this world's true master, and its one true God. You dare to strike the Lich King. You caused him pain, and for that you will know hell. Issei quickly went over, pulling Rias into a calm, loving woman, adding the back of her head, reassuring her that he was okay. Issei, Rias, calm down and look at me. I'm okay, everything's fine. I promise I'm not going to leave you. I'm here, calm down, I'm here. Rias's arrow began to retract inside of her, and she started to calm down, feeling her lover's warm embrace. Even though he was clad in armor, she could still feel the warmth of his embrace. She silently let out a few tears and looked up towards Issei. Even though she couldn't see his face, she knew he was letting out a warm smile underneath the helm of domination. She nodded her head and apologized. Rias, I'm sorry, my love. I just didn't want to see you hurt again. You're always getting hurt for my well-being. I'm truly sorry. Issei, it's okay. I'm never going to leave you, you know that, right? She let out a warming smile and nodded her head. Issei took his hands and wiped away the tears from her eyes. They let go of each other and started to focus back on their enemy. Issei, now aside from the surprising weakness of the angels, everything is going exactly as I have foreseen it. Issei stepped forward, reading Frostmourne. Issei, it's my turn again. Now come, Frostmourne hungers. Issei raised his sword in the air. Point you get at the angel, and what happened next shot Nigen even further. Even though he was only using about 2% of this attack, it still was effective enough to destroy the morality of the Theocracy. Issei, Apocalypse! Dark magic came out of the blade, shooting it straight toward the angel like monster. Once the dark runic magic connected with the monster, it completely destroyed it with one single attack, obliterating it, turning it to nothing but dust. Once all was said and done, Nigen and his followers were beyond speechless at what just occurred. Nigen, even demons don't have this kind of power. Just who in the world are you? Issei smirked underneath the helm of domination. Now what's the time to let these weaklings know who he really was? If some survive, they would spread the name of the Lich King throughout this world. Issei, I am the god of death, the master of Ice Crown Citadel, and the lord of the undead. I am the Lich King. In the past there it wasn't no one alive, living or undead, mortal or god, that did not fear this name. Now the god of death has returned to this world to claim was rightfully mine. Issei let out his icy arrow to show that everything he said was the truth. Then from behind the wall of shadows all they could see was death. They were looking straight into the icy cold eyes of death itself. Then it suddenly clicked before everyone there. They were truly standing in front of a god. The next thing that happened was somewhat strange. Cracks started to form in the sky right above Nigen and his forces, and then it suddenly disappeared. Nigen looked up to the sky, wondering what just happened. Nigen, hey what was that? Issei started to speak and now got everyone's attention, especially Nigen's. Issei, it would seem that I was right. And that someone was using reconnaissance magic to watch you from afar. My guess is that the Theocracy was watching you. However, I had already put countermeasures in place, so why doubt they saw very much. Nigen, he came shocked at what he just heard. Was his own country really watching him? Nigen, my country was watching me? Just then a female Frostmourne sorceress stepped forward and got on one knee and bowed before her master. It was the female from earlier that informed Issei that the Theocracy was coming. Earlier he had predicted something like this would happen and charged her with creating countermeasures for something like this, and as indeed she had pulled through. Svala, my liege, I have done as you asked, and now beseech you for your blessing. Issei, you have done well in serving me. Your loyalty is a testament to your dedication and therefore I have decided that you are indeed worthy of this charge. The Scourge forces knew what was about to happen, but for that the Theocracy soldiers, they were wondering what was going on. Issei raised Frostmourne over her head, and a dark aura came out from the blade and started going inside of the female Vrical's body. Issei, now arise and be forever known as Svala Sarograve. What happened shocked Nigen and his men. The female Vrical was then turned into a Valkyrie right before their very eyes. The newly made Valkyrie gazed upon her new form with awe, and her new sound power was beyond anything she had ever felt before. She then turned towards her master and bowed before him. Svala Sarograve, the sensation is beyond my imagining. I am yours to command, my king. Issei then turned towards Nigen and his men, and they immediately became scared for their very life. He pointed his sword towards them and ordered her to eliminate. Issei, your first test awaits you. Destroy our uninvited guests. The newly made Valkyrie immediately got up from her position and readied her weapon. She spread her wings and flew into the air, hovering above her enemies. Svala Sarograve, I will be more than happy to slaughter them in your name. Come, enemies of the Scourge, I will show you the might of the Lich King. Before she could attack, Nigen tried desperately to plead for his life in one last attempt. Nigen, no. Please wait, I beg you, my lord. No, wait, I mean the supreme ruler of death, His Majesty the Lich King, please spare my life. The rest of these men don't matter. When his soldiers heard that, they became shocked and terrified her to their minds that their commander would just disregard their very lives without a second thought in favor of his own. Nigen, please, I'll give you anything you wish, name it, I will do whatever it takes to appease you, the great and glorious god of death, please, I beg you, spare my life. Rias decided to step forward, speaking on behalf of her lover, letting out her crimson aura just a little bit, but it was just enough to scare the living shit out of everybody there. Rias, you are bravely mistaken. Nigen, huh? Rias, His Majesty the Lich King has no need for snibbling lower life forms. Mortals like you should bow their heads and give their things to the glorious god of death for ending your miserable lives. Nigen was now beyond scared and was sweating like crazy. Nigen, what does that mean, mortals like me? Issei's glowed a deep runic icy blue. He raised his sword in the air and dark energy expelled from the blade, turning everything over on the area to literal ice and snow. Then he immediately impelled the blade into the ground, sending a massive shockwave throughout the entire area, and the next thing that happened proved that he was the literal god of death, and that there was no escape from thousands upon thousands of undead soldiers emerged from the ground with their weapons ready for battle. Issei then stepped forward until he was 10 feet away from Nigen. Issei, now what wasn't you said to gaze f cease your futile resistance, and just lie down like a good dog. As an act of mercy, I'll make sure your death is painless. He then raised his hand and ordered Svala to kill them all. She charged forward with her weapon raised and began the slaughter. Nigen's his fate was sealed. All that could be heard from the distance were the echoes of screams of Nigen and his men. Later on that night, Issei, Rias, and their army were making their way back towards Icecrown. Issei and Rias were talking to themselves by their telepathic link towards each other and discussing the recent events. Issei and Rias's minds. Issei, I wonder, do you think I looked up to everybody's expectations as the Lich King and the Lord of Ice Crown Citadel? Rias, without a doubt. Issei, you definitely put it on the show back there. Issei, well, I hope so. I definitely think Svala is beyond grateful her transformation. Rias, definitely, I could feel her happiness, and I could definitely see stars shining in her eyes. Even now her face was covered with her helmet. She was definitely beyond happy for the gift you've given her. Issei, well, if she's happy, then I'm happy. Real world. Albedo, Svelna, Scotty, and the newly made Valkyrie Svala were talking amongst themselves, telling each other how amazing their master truly is. Albedo, so cool, His Majesty's such a badass. Giggles, Svelna, I know, right? The way he displayed his power was unimaginable. Scotty, you can say that again. There is no one living or dead that can match our master's limitless power. Isn't that right, Svala Sarograve? He gave a smirk to the Valkyrie. She gave a huge smile in return. Svala Sarograve, you are absolutely right, and I am forever thankful to our master, and it is because of that reason that I will forever serve him in any way he sees fit. Issei and Rias then turned towards the group, wondering what they were talking about. Issei, did you all say something? Albedo, Svelna, Scotty, and Svala turned towards the master and their queen, telling them that it was nothing. Albedo, oh, it's nothing, my lord. Svelna, yes, we were just talking to ourselves. But if I may ask, why did you save that human soldier? You even gave him that important relic. Issei was wondering what she was talking about, then it clicked in his mind. Issei's mind. Issei, actually it was a gimmick item in World of Warcraft. Real world. Albedo, more importantly, you could have sent us to fight in your place. We are your shield. There is no need to personally risk your life like that in my lord. Svelna, indeed, master, we are your instruments to use as you see fit. Just say the word and we will do it, my lord. Rias stepped forward and addressed them. Rias, you are not tools to be thrown away. Our glorious master sees the value in all of you. It will not throw away your lives so easily. Never forget that. Everyone was touched by the queen's words, and they were beyond thankful, though they have Issei as their master. Issei stepped forward and addressed their concerns. Issei, listen everyone, I know your strengths and I trust your devotion, however until we know more about this world I will not jeopardize your lives and we must proceed with the utmost caution if we believe that the enemy is stronger than us, it keeps us safe. Realization that dawned on the group, they couldn't help but think just how smart their master truly was and how much of a strategist he truly is. Sylvanas, I see now, so you tested their power by using him as a pawn. Albedo, your use of humans is truly impeccable, my lord. Sylvanas, indeed, but Master, I fail to see how taking that last angel's attack head-on counted as caution. Issei, is that so? Rias stepped in and supported their claim, wondering why he took that last attack head-on. Rias, I agree with them, my lord. Watching you feel pain, it was more than I could bear. You have sacrificed so much, I just couldn't bear to watch you like that again. Issei turned towards Rias and gave her a pat on the head, in which she blushed but smiled at the attention he was giving her. Issei, there is no need for you to worry, my love. Nothing is ever going to take me from you. That is a promise I intend to keep. Rias just smiled and nodded her head. Rias, I'll hold you to that, my love. Issei then turned towards the group and motioned for them to get going. Issei, all right everyone, let's return to Iceground. Everyone, yes my lord. Once everyone made their way back towards the citadel, all of the floor guardians from both Nazarick and Icecrown Citadel gathered atop of the spire at the frozen throne where Issei was sitting on the throne, with his queens by his sides, and all of his minions were gathered and on their knees bowing before their master. Issei then spoke up, addressing everybody. Issei, everyone, I want to apologize for leaving Icecrown on my own. There will be time to fill you in what all that has happened, however there is a more pressing matter I want to attend to. I have decided to give myself a name. From this day forward I will be known as Issei Hayato the Lich King. You shall call me Issei from this day forward. If you have any objections, stand now and voice them. Seeing that no one got up from their kneeling position, they all remained kneeling and accepted their master's new name. Albedo, we have heard your precious name, my lord, and devote ourselves to it with unwavering loyalty. Glory to the Lich King Issei Hayato. Glory to the Scourge. Everyone. Glory to the Lich King Issei Hayato. Glory to the Scourge. All hail. Everyone then spoke up individually, voicing their opinion on their true master. Shalter, we give ourselves to you utterly and without hesitation. Erua/Mare, to the most powerful ruler of Icecrown Citadel, and the one true god of death. Demiurge, everyone in this world will know of your greatness and fear your undying wrath. Cocytus, our one true king who rules over all for eternity. Anubarak, our master who is the true ruler of life and death itself. Glory to the death god. Lord Marigar, our glorious master who is devoted and feared throughout the land. Lady Death Whisper, our glorious master who rules over all. Sidragosa, hail to the one true king. Rhymefang, glory to the one true master of the Scourge. Spinestalker, glory to our eternal master. Valithria Dreamwalker, glory to our master and one true ruler of the dragons living and undead. High Overlord Sorfang, to a warrior who is unmatched in battle, who can never be beaten and can never be conquered. Deathbringer Sorfang, long live the Lich King Issei Hayato. Muradin Bronzebeard, hail to our glorious master. Kel'Thuzad, the Scourge will dominate this world with our glorious master leading them to victory. Queen Azhara, glory to the one true ruler and master of the Naga. Deathwing, long live our glorious master, long live the Scourge. Sister Sylvanas, to the one true ruler and master of the Valkyrie, glory to Lord Issei. Professor Putricide, hail to the Lich King. Albedo, glory to the supreme ruler, the one true god of death. It was then that Issei Queen stepped forward and got down on the knees and bowed before Issei atop the throne. Lady Lydrin, hail to my glorious love and the one true ruler of my heart. Sylvanas Windrunner, hail to the man who brought me back from the brink of death. From this day forward you will have my eternal loyalty and my eternal love. Blood Queen Lonathal, glory to my eternal master and my eternal love. Rias, to the man who stole my heart and saved me time and time again, glory to my eternal love and my eternal master. Issei then rose from his throne and impaled Frostmourne into the ground and rested his hands atop the hilt and addressed everyone. Issei, this is an absolute order. Make the name of the Lich King an eternal legend. All of his minions cheered in unison, all the while Issei continued to think to himself. Issei's mind. Issei, Across the land, throughout the sky, and over the sea I will spread the name of the Lich King to every corner of this strange new world, and all will know and fear the might of the Scourge, and all will fear the one true god of death. Later, when Issei and his queens retired to their personal bedchamber, everyone was still atop the spire at the frozen throne. Albedo then got up and turned her attention towards everyone getting there. Albedo, Demiurge, please tell everyone about your conversation with the Master. Demiurge got up from his new imposition and turned towards the group and addressed everyone. Demiurge, I was with Lord Issei the first night we arrived in this world, and he told me this: the stars glitter like jewels. I was set here to this land to obtain those jewels from myself and the Scourge alone, with every treasure that shined beneath them. Then after a moment I heard him say the most enjoyable thing might be taking over this world. Yes. Kel'Thuzad then came forward and asked for permission to speak, in which Albedo nodded her head in terms of break. Besides herself, Kel'Thuzad is one of the Lich King's closest advisors and one of his most powerful servants. Kel'Thuzad, then it's settled. Let it be known here and now that this is our final goal. As servants to the Frozen Throne, we will present this world to our master without fail. Everyone cheered in unison. From this day forward, their only goal would be presenting this world to their eternal master. From this day forward, Northrend shall be reborn. Thanks for watching this video. You really enjoy this video. Like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow Triston Bacon for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.